Summon Sign is brought to you by you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 43 of Summon Sign, Last Stand Media's weekly in-depth gaming discussion podcast. I'm your host, as always, Brad Ellis, and joining me this week, I have Mr. Colin Moriarty. Colin, how you doing, my friend?
I'm okay. I'm good. I woke up a little while ago, like 20 minutes ago at this point. Maybe more like 30 minutes ago at this point. But I'm hanging in there, you know. Listen, I know you guys don't care, but I feel a listlessness about the Jets.
I get it. I get it, man. The Jets are important to you.
They're 2-5. They're horrible. They lost again last night. Every game for the last 3 weeks has been a must-win game, and it's like,
Jeez.
So there's 10 games left. I mean, they could potentially turn it around, but it's just, you know, it's depressing. And because usually I always care, but usually I have no real expectations. Right. But I actually did have expectations this year. So it makes it's kind of ruining the whole football season for me. Like one of my favorite things of the year, no matter what's going on with the Jets. I love just watching the football season play out. It's just,
dude, I don't think I could be a sports. I respect the hell out of people that can do it. But I think if I was into sports and just watching my team like lose constantly or something, I just get so bummed out. And I don't think I could do that to myself. But I respect everyone that has the fortitude to hang in there. Like, Colin, you're hanging in there.
Yeah, it gets old. It gets old. It gets really old after a while.
But you're still there every week. You're still watching.
Yeah, I still watch every week, and I will. I always will. You know, but it's just and it's a thing that a lot of people don't understand, which I totally get. And frankly, I mean, I've gone into the psychology of it on Constellation. Like, I don't really understand it either. Like, my least favorite games to watch are Jets games out of all the football games because I'm like so anxious during them and like watching them intently as opposed to not really caring what happens, but just enjoying it for what it is. And yeah, this is just an extra painful year because it's just on paper, this is arguably the greatest Jets team that's been assembled in my entire life. Yeah. So, but the games aren't played on paper. They're played out on the field. And so 2-5 is horrible, and they would have to win like 4 or 5 games to really in a row to really get back into it. So it's not looking good. So yeah, I'm a little depressed about that, and generally I'm depressed about everything else in the world. So yeah, good to be here.
Well, at least there's good video games, right, Colin? You got good video games.
Too many good
games. And also joining us, Mr. Gene Park. Gene, how are you doing, my friend?
Oh, he's good afternoon, everyone. How's it going? Yeah, I'm also not into sports because I grew up on Guam. Right. We don't have sports teams. So there's no sense of territorial pride that I have, no geographical pride or whatever. Everyone on Guam was a huge fan of like the 49ers, you know.
That's what I was going to ask. There's got to be like some sort of team, right, that everyone gleams onto. So the Niners, interesting. Okay.
It's the Niners, sometimes Seattle, but it's usually San Francisco. San Francisco is a hugely popular town for islanders. A lot of people from Hawaii and Guam both end up moving there, which is why I fucking hate the town. I never want to move to San Francisco because they're
deeply Asian, that town.
Yeah. Yeah. There'll just be too many Asians there.
It's I lived there for a long time. It's shocking how many Asian people there are there. Like you didn't even know that there were this many Asians in the United States. Because when I first moved to the Bay Area, just for a year and a half or so, I lived in Daly City, which is like the Queens of San Francisco. And I've told you before, Gene, that it's the only town of 100,000 people or more in the U.S. other than Honolulu, where half of the population or more is Asian. So mega Asian. My landlords were Asian. And then when I moved to San Francisco, I lived in the Sunset, which is a mega Asian Chinese part of the city. And 1/5 of the population of San Francisco is Chinese. So it's like not even counting the other Asians. So it's just like, if you love Asians, who doesn't?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
who doesn't really? But yeah. I mean, I don't. So
fair enough. You don't want to be around other Asians. Yeah.
I've already been around so many of them, so I don't need to go to another city full of people like that and who want to be who are all like-minded enough to live in the same fucking city. You know?
Right.
Like, that's that's just not my thing. So,
it's kind of like how I grew up in a very matriarchal, women-run family, and then I couldn't marry a white woman. Like I can't do it. It's too many. It's like way too many white people around me. Way too many white women.
I get that. Yeah, right. It'd be like marrying your sister or something, right?
Yeah, it's like I can't. I already get enough ridicule. I get enough of the white woman energy, the anger, the angst. I'm just gonna marry a black woman.
Yeah.
It all makes sense now. There you
go. Welcome everybody. Hope you have a good time on the show. Thank you everybody for tuning in. I greatly appreciate it. So does everyone else. Before we end the show though, please check us out on patreon.com/lastdayme. If you'd like to support us, you can get the show and all of our other podcasts early, including Sacred Symbols, Defining Duke, Punching Up. We got a bunch of good stuff there, so please check it out. Also, leave us a nice rating on your podcast service of choice. We greatly appreciate it. Help us grow. We want to saturate the market, spread like Wesker would want it. And we got some merch at laststandmedia.store if you want to get some merch over there. So check that out as well. Boys, it's spooky season. Halloween is coming up pretty soon. 10 days from when we're recording, actually. So a little over a week. I thought it'd be fun to get some Halloween game recommendations from everybody, including the audience. So I've talked about a couple of them this past 2 weeks, I think. Gene, I want to start with you. Halloween game recommendation for the audience.
I'll represent the Punching Up Nintendo cohort. I will recommend Luigi's Mansion 3 or 2. But I think 3 is probably the better introduction for most people. Because it just screams trick-or-treat season, basically, the music, the vibes, the family friendliness of it, but it's pretty spooky too. It can be pretty eerie. Some of these ghosts have tragic backstories and everything like that, but I just think, just Luigi's Mansion humming along and alone in that big old hotel in part 3. So for folks who don't know, Luigi's Mansion 3, him and the Mario gang end up going on vacation for Halloween or whatever, and then they go to this very, very haunted hotel. And the game structure is, each floor of the hotel is a different world or a different theme going on. So very, very cool. It is a best-selling game for a reason, outselling most Sony first-party games. So I check it out. Luigi's Mansion 2 is a little harder. It just came out a couple months ago, and we talk about that a lot in Punching Up. So if you can go search for those episodes, but mostly, it's a cool game and I love it, and but people might have a problem with its mission structure. Every time you finish a goal, it's going to have a clear screen and you have to warp back out and warp back in. So It doesn't really have a flow or a consistency like 3 or even Luigi's Mansion 1 for the GameCube did. So different game, but I would recommend 3 first for as an introduction to the concept.
Yeah, great game. Colin, do you like Luigi's Mansion? I know you're a GameCube fan.
Yeah, the first one. I only played the first one.
Okay,
that was really much of what was available.
it was a launch game.
Yeah, originally. So, like that first year. Eternal Darkness is another. That's a little later, but that's another cool early GameCube horror game that people might enjoy. Plus, by the time you get to 2000. Well, Resident Evil 2 and 3 are re-released on GameCube in 2002, I think, and then 0 is 2002 or 2003.
That's right, yeah. So, Remake 1 and 0 were GameCube exclusive.
And Remake, right, of course. Yeah,
GameCube was home for a lot of horror, actually.
Yeah, definitely it was.
Yeah, so there's actually a few good things on there. If you like Silicon Knights, they haven't released a game in forever. They're done now. I think 2 Human was the last game they released, but that was a pretty well loved game. I thought they were trying to revive Eternal Darkness, weren't they? And then they failed a Kickstarter or something.
Yeah, that
or it was
a
sequel or something like that they were going to do. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, sounds familiar. But Colin, let's stick with you. Halloween game.
Well, the games I'm going to talk about today are good Halloween games.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So a cool Halloween game in the series that I'm going to talk about that I think is really fun. That's kind of spooky and creepy in my opinion. Like one of the most atmospheric games is a game that's not well loved, but Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest. Still one of the most alive games in that era that I've ever played, in my opinion, from a the day-night cycle and the not really knowing when it's going to happen. There is a timer, but you'd have to time it yourself. There's no in-game like inclination of when it's going to happen. That's what's so fun about that game. It's not like playing Majora's Mask where you know the day is going, you can see that it winding, and you kind of understand where you are in the day. In one of the 3 days. In Simon's Quest, it's tense because you're like running to get to the next town before the sun goes down and everything pops off, but you really don't know, and you feel it, and it's like weighing on you. And someone with a stopwatch could tell you immediately when it's going to happen because it's every whatever it is, 7 minutes or something. But so that's a game.
Oh, was there a timer? I never actually, after like 35 years or whatever, I've never actually bothered to figure out whether
there. Well, there has to be. I mean, there has to be a timer.
It's like 5 minutes or something. I think.
I think I timed it.
It was always random. Like, oh my god, I'm like, yeah, you're right. You got to run. You're like, oh, it's
so good, dude. Like, I love that game so much. Like, I wish it's not well loved, and I understand why. It's very obtuse, but I wish that. In the new Castlevania series or collection, we're going to talk about the Dominus franchise. They remade Vampire Hunter, the arcade game, and and I was looking at the credits, and it's like 10 people, and that remade it from the ground up. And it's like, do something like that for Simon's Quest and like clean it up a little bit, because it's so iconic. If you can just get people to play it, they'll realize where everything came from. Not everything came from, but a lot of the origins of Metroidvania, day-night cycles, action, but with an inventory, and it even has an experience system that's like very obtuse. Like, none of it's really spelled out. Multiple endings. Good shit, man. So that's one.
Before Zelda 2?
Yeah, I mean, in Japan it would be, I think, yeah, because it would be 80. It was 88 in the States. Zelda 2 is 88 in the States as well, I think.
Yeah, Japan in Zelda 2 in Japan, I think, was January 1987.
Right.
I'll try to find Castlevania,
which is so crazy that it was that early, man. I don't think we even got Castlevania 1 at that point. In the West, but no one knew what the fuck was going on, obviously.
Zelda was first by it came out in August, but they are so close to each other.
Oh yeah, they had to be in development together.
And by the way, I love Zelda 2.
Oh yeah, I think Zelda 2 is a better Castlevania 2. I guess I think that the ideas are executed better in Zelda 2 than Simon's Quest.
That's so interesting because good.
That's the one Castlevania game I think you and me disagree on. I don't like Castlevania 2. I know.
No, a lot of people don't like it. Yeah.
Oh, I know. But I do know people that like Castlevania 2 besides you also, though.
Oh, good. It's one of those. It reminds me of Zelda a lot, actually, in that in the early Zeldas, just in that, when you play Zelda 1, you can like go get the white sword and like a few heart pieces, and because it's not heart, it's like total heart pieces in Zelda 1, so you can get like, you don't find like the little pieces of them until I guess that's in Link to the Past when they invent that. Where you have to find 4 heart pieces to make a heart or whatever, and they start spreading them out more. And so it's one of those cool games where it's like, yeah, you can get really strong and then you can go and play the game. And obviously you need to like have certain items to get further, so you can only do so much. It's very much like that in Simon's Quest. Like, you can get, I think, the third best whip and a bunch of optional items. That was what was so cool about it. Like, the daggers were optional. I think the laurel was optional. But it's also incredibly obtuse. Like, the entire thing where the theory was that the town people are lying to you, basically, in the game. But it's actually just bad translations.
Oh my god! Are you serious? I didn't even know that. That's funny.
Because like in Final Fantasy VI, there's a town Zozo where everyone lies, and it's like part of the gimmick. So like everything they say to you, there's like one person there that tells you the truth. It's like part of the story. And so you could take that in Simon's Quest and be like, yeah, everyone's kind of misleading you, but it doesn't even really make any sense. They're all fucking horrified in the game too.
Yeah.
Like, they have no idea what's going on. Like, there's this guy running around the country. See, that's the other thing that's cool about Castlevania 2 is the story. Like, basically in the original Castlevania, they didn't kill Dracula properly. And they have to go around and dig him up.
Yeah,
they took all of his body parts and spread them out around Transylvania. And then they have to go
Dark Souls as fuck. It's awesome.
It's so dope. And so you have to go and find all that shit again and then put him back together and revive him and kill him again. Come on. That's good shit. As much as I love the Belmonts and their typical 100-year cycles and all the crazy shit that's going on, that's pretty fucking cool. So
yeah.
There are others to suggest too, more modern ones, like more modern games. Like, what's really fucking fantastic are the fucking Capcom Resident Evil remakes. Like, there's so much for you to get wild and crazy with right now.
Yeah.
out there with the horror games.
Or Village too. Village has werewolves and witches and, you know,
vampire stuff. Yeah.
Warlocks, Magneto, you know.
And then obviously, if you haven't played Dead Space Remake, I think it's on PS Plus, isn't it?
Yeah, I actually think so.
Yeah. So you should. There's no excuse. Most of you have PS Plus, and so anyway, that's a long-winded answer, but
no, yeah, those are great ones though. Yeah,
I would have called myself a fan of Castlevania too, because I think it was my first Castlevania that I played. I'm pretty sure I played Castlevania 1 in the arcade. But Castlevania 2 was the one I played at home, and I was like, whoa, I got Castlevania at home, you know, and it's so different. And the story, and I'll never forget, you know, I think the soundtrack is just one of the most memorable. Mm-hmm. Every time I'm in any kind of danger or in any kind of like situation, I always hear the notes in my head. Yeah, the nighttime theme song, and it's just like, oh, I'm fucked now, you know.
And dude,
and then it just always plays in my head. That's just it's just game time. Like watch out, dude. You know.
The Castlevania box art, like the original Castlevania box art, is obviously very well liked and is iconic in its own right, which is reasonable. I think the Castlevania 2 box art is significantly underrated as well.
Yeah, his armor looks
he's got the sick armor, like Dracula's on the precipice behind him looking down at him. The scale is really weird because he's like right there. It's like, why don't you just get him? He's right there. But Simon's Quest was the first game that really introduced in me so this is nerdy, but this is fucking really nerdy. I grew up on a court, like it was called Marie Court instead of a street, right? So it's like a cul-de-sac, and we had 6 houses on it, and there are, I believe, 5 mansions and a castle in Simon's Quest. And when I was a little kid in like the late 80s or early 90s, I would pretend that all of them were the mansions, and then the biggest house, which was like in the back, not mine, was like the castle. It gave me nothing cracked my mind open, I don't think, like Castlevania did from an imaginative point of view. I loved it. I used to run home and pretend I was being chased by monsters, and like I had to get oh my god, it was so fun.
Cool.
You know?
Yeah, I think it was my introduction to like gothic horror and Dracula. I think the concept of Dracula itself, even, you know.
Definitely, me too. Yeah. I mean, where else would we? People have to remember, like in the time that Dracula or Castlevania came out, it was certainly pre like the teenage, like, of course, vampire shit, but like it's pre Interview with the Vampire. Like Anne Rice, I think, is like writing shit, but a lot of it hasn't made it to movies yet, and it's not like mass culture like it is today. It was, and then it wasn't, and then it is now again. So because you think about like Nosferatu, and which I found out was made without permission. There's like a lot of drama around that, which is pretty interesting.
Okay, yeah, she wrote Interview with the Vampire in 1976, but like, yeah, it you know, the movie wasn't made until 1984. Like,
yeah, 90s were big for vampires. There's no doubt about that, and Castlevania became big too. But
yeah, but the 80s, yeah, where are we gonna get our Dracula fiction in 1986, 1987? You know, the cartoons weren't talking about Dracula, you know,
and by the way, people should. I mean this 100%. Dagan and I did a knockback on it a long time ago. The Bram Stoker's book from the late 1800s, 1890s, Dracula, that all this is kind of built upon, is so good.
Yeah,
you know, it really is so fucking good, and people should read it if you haven't. It's so well done. It's so, I can still see all of it. It's so, especially the first half, I love, especially before it gets a little crazy. But anyway, yeah. So I'm sorry.
No,
it's
yeah,
Sacred Symbols. We have things to do.
No. I love it. That's what we're here to do. Just talk, have a good time. And I like the book recommendation as well. That's good. Because I don't read enough, so I always appreciate people give book recommendations.
Yeah, I mean, if it matters to you, Dracula's free because it's in the public domain. So you don't have to buy it. You can just go read it somewhere if you want.
Just go read it.
Dope.
Do you guys like to dress up for Halloween or do anything for Halloween?
I never do, but I have a couple times.
Okay.
I hate dressing up for Halloween, but
okay.
But you know, because of my party days or club days, like they would have fucking Halloween themed parties, and so if I want to attend, I have to put on a costume. So I did.
I see.
Yeah.
What about Colin? What about you, man?
No, I don't like dressing up. I haven't dressed up since college. The last time I dressed up was probably 2005 or 2006, something like that, and I was Spicoli from Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
That's funny.
Which was fun. It was a fun costume, but yeah, I'm not into it. I've never really been into it. When I was a little, I don't like, so the big thing for me is I don't like candy and I don't like chocolate. So I used to, and I was the youngest of four. So my siblings basically used to just pillage my Halloween candy, and I really didn't care, you know. I remember a few of my costumes. I have a piece of one of them actually still from when I was like 5 or 6, which I was a penguin. My mom used to make me my costume sometimes too, and she was really good.
That's cute.
And she was like a stay-at-home mom and she had some time or whatever. But I was a penguin. I was a ninja one year in elementary school. That was probably like 90, 91, something like that. Penguin was maybe 88, 89, something like that. But yeah, ever since then, I was a pirate once, of course.
Yeah, of course.
In high school, I used to just, my dad had like all these, you know, obviously he was a firefighter. He had all these like interesting implements, like from the, like masks and stuff. And I used to wear like this Psycho Mantis style gas mask. And then 9/11 happened when I was a senior in high school, and I wore that October. So like a month or so later in the hallways, and I got in trouble. Yeah. Because everyone was scared of everything at that time.
Yeah. Everyone was paranoid about everything.
But I was like, dude, I've worn this every year I've been here. Like, I don't understand. I wore this last year.
Like, do you
the costumes I've had?
No, go ahead. No, keep going.
Oh, okay. The costumes I had was what I distinctly remember when I was in first grade. I wanted to be a zombie cowboy, specifically a zombified cowboy.
Sick.
I was already sophisticated enough to mash two different concepts together. So I did. I became a zombie cowboy. I loved it. It was a great day. For some reason, it's one of the most distinctive days of my 6-year-old life. And I was like, that's it. I've achieved it. You know, I've done all I wanted to do in life. You know, I was a zombie cowboy, and I just never engaged in Halloween for a while. I recently posted on Twitter that I went to Steve Jobs 1 week after he died in 2011.
Oh, I saw the picture. You tweeted out a picture of that.
Yeah. And before that, so apparently, I thought that wasn't my last one, but this incident happened before. Before that, I also was a Chilean miner from the 2010 Chilean mining accident. Do you guys remember that one?
Yeah, of course. They paid PSP underground. Yeah.
Oh, did they play PSP?
Yeah. Don't you remember that it was a joke that like Sony sent them PSPs or something like that?
Yeah, I do remember that. Oh shit.
And then people were like, how are they going to charge them?
Yeah. So in 2010, 33 men were just caved in and they were rescued. Thank goodness. I would not have dressed up as any of them if even one of them died. But the fact that they all made it out just made it a wonderful, cool story of heroics. So I just bought a long sleeve green shirt and put on a white shirt over it, and then slapped the Chilean flag on me, and then wore a hard hat and put on some smokes because they were all smoking.
Yeah.
And I was smoking anyways too, and that was my outfit for.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Love that.
I think, I guess Steve Jobs was really the last one. The last time I actually bothered to.
Do you do you guys get trick or treaters at all?
Oh yeah, we definitely do. But it's like fucking trick or treat mania here. But we put out a sign in a bowl and just say like, if people knocked and rang our doorbell every 20 seconds, which is what would happen or more for 5 hours, our dogs would fucking flip out.
I see.
So I write a little sign where I'm just like, please don't knock or ring. Like, you know, so our stairs, then we have a porch. Like you have to walk up to our house. So like on the stairs before you even get anywhere near the door, it's just like, you know, ringing and knocking scares our pups. Please just help yourself and have a happy Halloween or whatever. And it's like, that's fine.
Oh, that's nice.
I don't really want to. It's like I buy into the Halloween social contract, right?
Right.
Like I think it's weird when people like turn their lights off and like just like try to be. It's like, dude, you're in the middle of the neighborhood. It kind of sucks, I know, but it's for the kids and all that. You got to do something. But this is my compromise, right? Is like I'll leave the candy out and we'll replace it and replenish it, make sure, you know, because if I did that where I was from, it would be gone in 10 minutes. But that's not the way. The kids are pretty good here, you know. Like if I would never do something like this if I were, you know, back on Long Island where it would have just disappeared probably. Who knows? Maybe it's different now. But my compromise is like I don't have kids. There are only a few houses in our entire neighborhood that don't have kids. And I'm like, so I'm not going to do I'm not all night. So I'm not dispatching my child out and you have to participate or whatever. And so I'm not going to do the thing where I'm like, oh, you're a mermaid, and it's like I'm not going to do that.
You're not going to be like Trump and put the candy on top of the minion's head.
You're right. Yeah, I love that. I love that so much.
That is like third on top of like one of the best things he's done. Number one is a McDonald's and Domino's Pizza and Wendy's dinner, of course, but number two is something in between. But the candy on the minion head is just amazing.
He's so funny. Like
he's a funny guy.
He's really funny. And I don't know who pointed it out to me recently that like he doesn't really laugh. So it's like a mega flat affect because he's joking all the time. And I'm like, man, he's a really like I totally understand. Like,
that's right. What the fuck?
But like he's definitely like he's like my dad in some sense. Where my dad's like kind of dicking around all the time, but he's not really laughing.
That's
like,
true. Your dad isn't much of a laugher either. Yeah.
No. And but like nothing's very serious. And I appreciate dude, the McDonald's stuff this past weekend is so funny.
I don't know why people are so mad about that.
Like the shot of him like at the drive-through window like waving is fucking that's like an iconic picture.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's something to win or lose, how you feel about him. It's I don't care. I'm not getting into any of that. I'm not trying to endorse anyone. I don't care. Wait, you should go out and vote for sure. But whoever you want to, it's up to you. But win or lose, he is funny. And I respect the fuck out of that. Because I think we need a little more levity. If I'm being honest. You know?
We do.
Ratchet it up a little bit.
Yeah. You know? Everyone's so damn serious all the time. Just laugh a little, people. All right. Colin, Until Dawn, you've been playing. Now, before you've been playing both versions of this game?
Yeah,
is that correct?
Yeah,
please tell me why you're doing this to yourself.
Well, because I
was going to talk about this for like the past few weeks too.
Yeah, because I'm no one else. So a big thing is
Everyone's like, when is he going to play Silent Hill 2 for fuck's sake?
I talked about this on Sacred. I did.
We all know why you're doing.
I was going in. I was playing. Yeah. But I'm waiting for the Pro. I'm just having shimmering issues. I saw a thing, by the way, because I was having really bad shimmering issues with Alan Wake 2. The patch notes for PS5 Pro from Alan Wake 2 note that the Pro will be able to play the game at a 60 frames per second frame rate at the resolution of the PS5 core or basic. So I'm like, that's perfect. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So so I'll get into that. I got to get back to Alan Wake 2 is another one thing. So Silent Hill 2, I'll get there. I'm not going to be on the spoiler cast. I think we have to get other people to do that, but because I don't want to hold it up forever. But Until Dawn Remake silently was released earlier this month. Virtually no one is playing it seems like.
Nope.
I'm fascinated by everything around this game, really. So we're talking about Until Dawn Remake specifically right now. And this is what I said on Sacred was, I just think you should play the original. I mean, if you've not played Until Dawn, you should, because the original Until Dawn is awesome. And on PS5, the PS4 version, which is the only one that exists of the original, runs at 60 frames, and it's really, really nice. And I did go back and play, and I'll talk about it in a minute because I haven't played it since it came out. Before that, but I was interested. I buy a lot of games, and Until Dawn is a game I like, so I'm like, okay, I'll buy the remake. Now, obviously, everything around this is deeply suspicious because Sony just doesn't even acknowledge its existence, barely at all to this day. I was looking at the PlayStation blog history of Until Dawn Remake, and it's like they have an announcement and then they have like some release date stuff. But when the game comes out, they never posted about it. And then they posted like something about the soundtrack recently. But you had to go search for it even when it came out. Like it's not on splash screens or anywhere. You would think it would have some place stationed on some banner somewhere, just like a lot of other games. And it's not. Like it's rare because Sony doesn't do games like this anymore where they're trying to hide it. I was trying to think of the last game where like, what is the last game they like tried to hide or didn't give a shit about? And the answer I came up with was really weird and obscure, which was Shadow of the Beast, which I thought about when they rebooted. Shadow of the Beast is an old Amiga IP that they own because of when they bought Psygnosis. They absorbed some of these random IP. Shadow of the Beast was one of them. They re-released it in like 2018 or 2019. No one gave a fuck. And they never acknowledged it. Like it just came and went, and there it was. And I have not played it. It's supposed to be pretty bad. So that was the last time, like 5 years ago, maybe. And so just from an industry point of view, I think that that's quite fascinating because Sony obviously invested in this game at some point, just like with Shadow of the Beast and others. and at some point believed in it or into it. And then at some point it got too far, but they didn't really like it anymore. And so they let it come to market, but just poop it out. And I'd love to see the sales numbers on this game because no one in our family was playing it. I mean, like our recording family, obviously. And I got my friend from another horror YouTube channel to play it and do the episode with me because I wanted to dedicate some time to it. And obviously the movie just finished production and they've already dated it for late April of next year. And I don't know how that's going to work out. As I said on Sacred Symbols, like Until Dawn is pretty pedestrian if you're looking at it as a horror movie. So I don't know. It's if you're not playing it yourself and making the choices, it's like, I don't know how that's going to work out, but I'll go see it and we'll do an episode about it at the time. The game itself is running at 30 frames with no choice but to run it at 30 frames. There's no other option. There's no modes. It's on Unreal Engine 5. And the deep irony here, as I've noted in the past, is that they made a big deal of getting Until Dawn off of Decima, while Decima is the engine that runs the most beautiful game on PlayStation, probably, which are the Horizon games, specifically the second one.
And Death Stranding too.
And Death Stranding, right. And at 60 frames. Doesn't make any sense from that point of view. They free up the camera, which I think is a really big mistake actually in the game. And this is why I went back to play the original because, and this is where it all kind of gets together again, is I went and played the original and I was like, was it that bad? Like I in other words, I remember playing it in 2015. I played it twice. I played it with my girlfriend at the time, but I played it before it came out. And I loved it. Supermassive. I was like, wow, this is, and I remember saying Supermassive is out Quantic Dream. Remember, this is in the shadow of Beyond Two Souls, but we don't know about Detroit Become Human yet. We have to wait a few years where Quantic Dream, I think, really gets themselves back into pole position. But I remember really liking it and being like, wow, I thought Until Dawn was awesome. And so I was like, I beat Until Dawn remake. And then I was like, I got to go back and play the original because why did they do this? And I went back and I'm like, the original looks great. In fact, I'm not saying Micah cares the most about fidelity. She doesn't. And she's not paying very close attention, but she didn't realize when I was playing Until Dawn, the 2015 version, that I wasn't still playing the remake at some point. She's like, wait a minute, this is like, I thought you were just like replaying the game again. And I'm like, no, this is an original game, you know? And one of the things that I think really benefits the game, the original game, which is surprising but true, is the fixed camera angles. It's a movie. It's a horror movie. There are things you have to see and perspectives you have to see. And in playing the remake with this kind of more third person over the shoulder thing, I'm like, this loses all of its fear, becomes more of like an explorative game as opposed to something where I am following along on a script. And what I'm really trying to do, a la Quantic Dream, is get to the next choice. So bring me there. And if I have to walk there, that's fine. And if there's like some accoutrements and a letter for me to read and all that, all the better. But get me there. And there's really fucking cool camera angles in the original one. I was writing some of them down for our Explorer cast where I'm like, there's a scene where you're walking down a hallway in like a basement and the camera goes above these pipes that are on the ceiling. And it follows like over you as you're going. And in the original and the new one, it's just like you're just walking down the hallway. I'm like, this is just weird. Like, why did you do this? Now, it's worth noting Ballistic Moon, the second party studio that was working in a second party capacity, it was founded by people that come from Supermassive and worked on this game. So it's not that they're unfamiliar with it. And what I think is that they had this need to go and say, like, we can up-res this and get it in a better position for history, especially when taken in unison with the movie. And by the way, a sequel, which the game sets up. Whether or not it actually happens at this point, I have no idea. But it's just a strange package overall. Until Dawn, 2015 Until Dawn is great. I highly recommend it. It's on PlayStation Plus Extra, I think, if you have that game catalog. But I think you can buy it for $20. The new one, I think, is $50. There is no upgrade path. This doesn't bother me so much because it is a remake. It's not the old game. It's literally imported into a new engine. It's rebuilt. The character models are different. Everything's different. By the way, everyone looks 30 years old in the game. Just so you know. You are going to lose sight that these are supposed to be 17 or 18-year-old, 16-year-old kids because they don't act like it. They don't look like it. They don't sound like it. None of it. This isn't a spoiler. What Until Dawn is about, like in the beginning, okay? And if you really care, I guess just fast forward. But this is literally happens in the first 2 minutes of the game. Is everyone in the game? It's the year before. Everyone in the game is at this cabin, and they play a prank. It's like all these friends. Some of them are siblings. Some of them are couples. Whatever. It's like 8 of them, and they play this prank on one of the girls. And the girls are one of the girls is they're twins. So her sister's there. She gets upset. She runs outside and like to kind of like get air, and like the sister follows after her, and then like something happens to them and they die. Right. And the game is about everyone coming back to the cabin the next year to like hang out and like commemorate it. And I'm like, where are your parents? What is going on here? Like 2 of your friends just disappeared. You guys are just coming back here. You know, it's very weird, and I highly recommend it. You know, like the original. Like it's because it is fun. It's possible. So whatever it is, 8 remaining characters. So maybe with the girls there would be 10. The girls that die in the beginning. You can beat it so that any permutation of them are alive at the end, and there really are a bunch of different outcomes. Which is kind of cool. It all ends up in the same place, but the way people die and how they die and the things that happen. So there's a trophy for getting everyone to survive and for getting none of them to survive. And it's really cool. So I really enjoyed going back to the original Until Dawn. So I just ended up platinuming it. And
how long did that take?
15 hours, maybe something like that. I played it twice. I played it once through collecting everything and keeping everyone alive, and then I played like this really busted ass version of it where I was letting everyone die to try to get that last trophy or whatever. So it's fun. I mean, I recommend it. The Until Dawn remake I feel like is going to be cheaper, and what I was saying was it's not unplayable, it's not bad, it's fine. It's just it doesn't need to exist really, because it doesn't do anything that increases the fidelity of the game, the quality of the game. It doesn't change anything really meaningful. They do make a few really interesting design choices, like Until Dawn, the original Until Dawn begins at night, which doesn't really make any sense. I mean, it does because it would be short days, especially it's in Alberta, so it's, you know, in Canada, in the Rockies, up there. Until Dawn remake begins in the day, so like there are like random things that they change, but the games are basically the same. So what I would say is play the original Until Dawn. And if you really like it, then maybe you'll want to check out the remake just out of curiosity and interest, especially because they make changes at the end that sets up a sequel, like blatantly. And I don't know how I feel about that either. I think it's kind of cool in some sense. If it's like people they're older now, they're 10 years older, and they're dealing with it. And now they're in their 20s, even though they're going to look like they're in their 40s and all the rest. I said this on Sacred Symbol. There is a scene in a cabin between the two characters where one of them loses their phone, and she says, like, my parents are going to kill me. And I'm like, your parents? You're like a 31-year-old woman. You know? But then you have to, and I will say this, and this is what I'm most interested in with the remake visually, and I wonder if anyone else sees this, is that there's an inconsistency with the character models where, from my perspective, you can tell like that different people of different qualities worked on some of this stuff, even though they're all protagonists. And I was saying the character Ashley looks really good in the new one, and she looks the best in the old one too. And then there's characters like Jess, where I'm like, you look like a single mom of 3. You know, you look like you're 39. Like you're like, what happened here? I don't understand. So that's Until Dawn and Until Dawn remake. Very seasonal games, but
yeah.
But trust Sony when they say that if they're not trying to sell you the game, which they're not, you probably don't want to buy it.
It's $60. The remake.
60? I thought it was 50 for some reason. Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, I bought it, but yeah,
I'm good.
Yeah,
I really feel like that's got like sale written all over it. If not, probably not for Black Friday, but definitely, Q1. That game will probably be half off, and that sounds like a PS Plus game at some point too.
Yeah, it does. I think, dude,
especially like March or April when the movie comes out.
Yeah, this is such a weird idea to remake this game to me. it's so unnecessary. I don't know why they felt the need to remake it fully. Why not just remaster the first one?
Exactly, because the first one's great and it looks good still. Like I was surprised. I was like, this looks really good. It's not a PS5 game by any stretch of the imagination, but it looks really good. And at 60 frames, it's smooth as butter. It's totally great. The other one stutters and crashes, and I don't know, man.
Oh my God, dude.
And Ballistic Moon apparently, like, is, you know, Jaffe was saying this, and it's true, is that like apparently a lot of that team is just lost their jobs when they went gold. Like, I don't think they even have another project lined up, and Sony's certainly not interested in it. And if the sequel is in development, I God hope it's not there, and I don't think it is. The rumor was that the sequel's in development at Firesprite, and Firesprite was making a horror game apparently, but I don't know if that's all true or not. I have no connection.
This is just another thing, Colin, that makes me want to take a bite out of chocolate gun, because they remake this game but not Bloodborne.
Like we said, it's
perfect
deeper
example.
than that. Same year they came out, and Until Dawn's actually a little newer. Until Dawn came out, that
who's making these calls, man? Who?
That's right. It is newer. Holy shit.
I don't know. I don't know who's making the call. Well, they're obsessed with IP and synergies. Mm-hmm. And I was saying this on Sacred Symbols, that I'm going to give the Until Dawn film the benefit of the doubt, simply because I don't think PlayStation Productions, the film and movie and TV side or whatever, has fucked up yet. I think everything they've done has been at least good. So maybe this will be good too. But they want that but to me, it's like, all right, if you want that synergy, do it right.
Right. Don't half-ass it. They just rushed this out because it's October. And they're like, we need to capitalize on October.
Right. And that's kind of shitty, just because now knowing that the movie is 6 months out, it's like you could have lined this up for the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And given them more time, you know. So anyway.
Hey, this will be pro enhanced though. So you got that to look forward to, Colin. You could re-examine it. Maybe they'll actually get 60 frames on it now.
I probably will go back and I will
oh my God!
I would like to get the platinum. I would like to get the platinum, so maybe I will.
Oh my God!
Go back and play it on pro at some point, but I don't know. I'm off to other things now, so I don't know.
Yeah, move on. Yeah. That's enough.
Can I jump off of what Colin said earlier too?
Yeah.
I never played Until Dawn, and I have no interest in doing so. But what Colin said about fixed camera angles really resonated with me, because that was a huge point I brought up in my Silent Hill 2 review, which does the same thing. It takes a game that was fixed camera angles and put the camera just a little bit above to the right of them. And it changes the game. It changes it changes the messaging of the game. It changes what the game is communicating to you. You know, I don't have to go into details, but there's a chase sequence in Silent Hill 2 that is different because the camera's not showing what's behind you. So I bring that point up. If you know, imagine if there was an Indiana Jones game and they decided to put in a boulder sequence, right? But the boulder sequence is just Indy running straight ahead at some platform, nothing's going on, and you can hear the boulder behind you. It's not the same thing as the famous shot of Indiana Jones running away from the boulder toward the camera. You know, you think about a movie like Alien, when Sigourney Weaver is at the end of the movie, and she is navigating the spaceship all by herself with the alien around. The camera isn't focused behind her and looking ahead of her. The tension is that the camera is looking at her face. You can't see, the viewer, the audience can't see what she can see. All you can do is feel her fear and tension, and that's what the piece of art is trying to communicate. What Until Dawn sounds like it's doing, and what Silent Hill 2 definitely does, is just completely changes perspective. So you get a different kind of vibe altogether. You know, so I think it's really worth pointing out. I'm not saying it's worse. I think it's worse, but you know, it obviously works a lot better for a lot of people. But I think it's important to figure out what we lose when we decide to make everything look like Resident Evil 4.
Yeah, that's very well said.
Yeah, you have to account for camera perspective shifts and all that stuff. But it sounds like Until Dawn, they didn't really do that. They're just like, well, now you can move the camera around. And it's like, okay, well, there goes a lot of the tension, which is super important for a game like that.
Right, because I think Silent Hill, not that I've played it extensively yet, but it recommends itself more for an open camera, because you can explore, and now you can go into this place and kind of see your way through and take your time. Until Dawn is more time based than that. Every chapter is an hour, right? In the world, it doesn't take an hour. Often they're way less than that, but yeah, and there are just things like there are pieces of Until Dawn where because the camera angle's pitched a certain way, it's like you see a creature run across or whatever, or something's catching your eye or whatever. And that's one of the fun things of horror. It's not to say that one, like you said, Gene, is better or worse. It really depends on the game because there's something very scary about just being able to freely explore a place and get lost in that too. But yeah. I don't know, man.
I don't want to say like I'm putting down the Silent Hill 2 remake. Please go read my review. I really enjoyed it, and I think like to what Colin said, I think they do a good job of taking advantage of this new camera angle and adding more stuff around it. And sometimes they don't, but then when they do, the Silent Hill 2 remake does a really good job. But anyways, this is not about Silent Hill 2 remake. We can talk about it in the spoilercast. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out because
totally.
Yeah, I'm glad Colin noticed that too. It's like, okay, yeah, we're not just crazy. Everything definitely changes with the camera perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we got a write in from Meatball here. What's up, BCG? What do you guys think Until Dawn was such a big hit, and why did Dark Pictures Anthology and the Quarry fail to reach the same level of success? They all follow the same general formula, so what makes Until Dawn so special?
I think it's a place and time thing. I mean, I think part of what drove it for me was what I said earlier, that Beyond Two Souls, which was the kind of the second of the 3 PlayStation exclusive Quantic Dream games, failed to hit for me so badly that I was really disenchanted by their specific ability to follow up Heavy Rain with something that felt like Heavy Rain and was as impactful as Heavy Rain was, which is another great recommendation for a Halloween game. Not that it's necessarily Halloween. It's just so dark and fall-like, the rain, the Heavy Rain. So Heavy Rain's 2010, Beyond is 2013, like right before the PS4 launches, it comes to PS3, and then we're in the kind of the late summer of 2015 when Until Dawn comes out, and it felt so from a time and place perspective. I think for a lot of us, it just felt very refreshing. It's like, actually, no, someone else can actually do something like this, make a meaningful choice-based game that doesn't end no matter what you do, and gets you from point A to point B just with a ton of consequences. And it felt really nice. And I think by the time we got to Detroit, which was 2018, it all kind of came full circle. And obviously that's back to Quantic Dream, but getting a touchstone story-based game of a high quality like that in the PlayStation ecosystem was kind of an expectation. And I think Until Dawn reset that expectation. So I think from a time and place perspective, it makes a lot of sense why it was big. I didn't like the Quarry either. I thought it was fine, but it's not like I wasn't crazy about it. I have not played the Dark Pictures anthology games. I do own a couple of them because I bought them when they came out, but I just have never gotten to them. I don't know that they're not. They're certainly not the critical darling that Until Dawn was with some people, but as I understand it, those games are fairly well liked, and they've made 4 of them. So they would have stopped by now. And they're making like another anthology now, like a second Dark Pictures anthology, starting with a 5th game, which will be the first in that anthology. So certainly there's something there where everyone seems to be happy and on the up and up. Supermassive is a fairly sizable studio. So I actually think they are finding some success there, but I did hear Man of Madonna was a little soft, which was the first one. And that kind of rubbed people the wrong way. And I really just think a lot of it does depend on not only the story, obviously, and the characters, but about the timing, about like what the gap in the market was at the time, what feels like it's needed, even releasing a game like this in the fall as opposed to in the spring. I think a lot of that kind of different stuff matters. And so that's, in my opinion, why Until Dawn hit all those years ago and why it would probably be a little bit of a different story now. I feel like people would look at Until Dawn and get mad at it now because it's not the highest. It was more of a AA style game, really, in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I think at the time it was just kind of exciting because it was this horror game and different, like you were saying at the time. But there's been so many games like it now. It's just like, it's not special anymore. Do you know what I mean? It's like they've done like 4 games you said already from Supermassive. It's just like, yeah, cool, different setting, just another horror movie. Yeah, the Quarry. It's just like, all right, whatever.
That's their thing. I mean, I know that they did Little Nightmares 3 as well, right? Like they're starting to get into more action stuff as well and spread their wings a little bit, but it's their niche. It's like Telltale.
Yeah.
It makes me, in some sense, going back to the original Until Dawn made me eager to get into the Man of Medan and go from there. I know people say it's bad, but I want to see them all and make my own decisions.
Yeah.
Frankly, a lot of you were wrong about a lot of things.
Yeah, I've played Man of Medan and House of Ashes. They're okay. I think you'd probably enjoy going through them. So, I mean, yeah, if you're in the mood, there's still plenty more to do. All right, this is from Necromod Boy. Hey, gents, this one is for Colin. After replaying Until Dawn and seeing the numerous attempts at tackling the choose-your-own-adventure genre fall short with the Dark Pictures anthology, The Impatient, Frank Stone, and The Quarry, do you think that Supermassive just got lucky in a time when companies like Quantic Dream and Telltale were not at the top of their game? Also, what would you like to see with the future of these types of story-driven adventure games? Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, we touched a little bit on this earlier, but maybe it was a little bit of luck, but I think it is timing. And the market for these games in such a competitive, I just think people are underestimating how the Dark Pictures games do. And I think that that's just obvious. Bandai Namco would have pulled the plug on these games a long time ago if they weren't doing well. And by the way, I mean, it could be Bandai Namco announced recently that they canceled games and are laying people off and all of the rest. So it might be that Bandai Namco doesn't own Supermassive, but it might be that one of the casualties. So you'll really know how they feel about Dark Pictures anthology if one of the casualties of this recent cut was the new Dark Pictures game, but I don't think it probably is. And I think that that's a sign that there's probably nice monies to be made there. I don't think they're like doing gangbusters, but I bet you it's a profitable enterprise and they have enough of a audience, and horror is huge. You can't understate that. Horror is just so big and people are willing to spend money on films and TV shows and certainly games. So, but it's true that it did sneak out, like I said, when Quantic Dream was seemed to be on the downturn. And now Detroit, I think, is better than Heavy Rain. So they ended up coming back strong. And Telltale obviously was, I think, stumbling from the beginning. So maybe that has something to do with it, but I've not played all these games either. So, but The Quarry I did think was somewhat weak and I wasn't crazy about it, but each their own.
Yeah, you talk about Bandai Namco, and I just totally remember they had that game Unknown 9 that came out. Unknown 9 Awakening. It's just like bombing, man. So that's another bad move for Bandai.
I see some of these things, and they look fine, but it's just like I'm surprised sometimes when I see what these external publishers invest in.
I know.
I'm like, what is it? You want to put money in this? It's like, okay.
Yeah, weird call. I don't know what they were thinking. It reminds me of Square Enix in the early days and Capcom just trying to get in the West. Which are Western developers, and yeah, exactly. It's just like, what are you guys doing? I don't know. It's weird. And Tekken 8's in a bad state right now. It's like really bad on Steam. Everyone's unhappy with it, so they got some work to do. All right, well, that's Until Dawn. Like Colin said, you could check out the remake or the original, which is probably cheaper and runs better. So maybe do that one first. Pick this one up on sale.
I don't want to check out Until Dawn, only because this girl I like really loves Until Dawn. She's like Until Dawn. She's an Until Dawn fanatic. Like her profile picture is an Until Dawn character. I don't know who the fuck or whatever. Her profile name is an Until Dawn reference.
Whoa!
She's on all these Until Dawn groups or whatever. I really like her, but so I'm only gonna play Until Dawn just to get close to her.
Until Dawn group.
yeah. There's a whole dedicated fan community, and she's a part of that. And that's how I know to not underestimate Until Dawn, I guess.
Oh sure, yeah. I mean, it was a really popular game.
Yeah,
and I get it. Yeah. But just the remake is disappointing right now. They got some work to do on it.
Yeah.
All right, boys. I've been playing Dino Crisis. It recently came out on PS Plus, only for premium. Once again, just like Resident Evil Director's Cut. So thanks for that.
Weird. Capcom. I don't know what's going on with Capcom with that. Yeah.
Who's ever doing that? It's really annoying me. You gotta stop doing that.
Yeah. Pissed me off.
Yeah, it's really stupid. Anyways, but yeah, Dino Crisis. So I played a little bit of Dino Crisis back in the day, just a little bit. And so I was like, okay, let's go back. Let's finish it this time, actually. I haven't finished it yet, but I'm pretty far. And it's very strange. It's not what you think it's going to be maybe right away. I thought it was just going to be literally Resident Evil dinosaurs. And it kind of is. But it does some things different that I think will kind of push people away in a lot of ways. I think Resident Evil is very digestible when you get into it. It flows really nice. The puzzles are, especially in the earlier games, are pretty simple enough to get through, and they're kind of creative, and this setting's really good. This game, I think, is good a lot of ways, but right away you're going to notice is that, and you play Resident Evil, of course it's survival horror, you have limited ammo and resources to manage, and this is as well, but the dinosaurs in the game are like tanks. Like your pistol you start with is practically useless the entire game unless you can get a dinosaur stuck behind a little laser wall, well, which I'll get into later. So you think of Resident Evil 1, you're walking in, you get that first zombie, stands up, turns around, and attacks you. You can take them down. It takes 5 shots or something like that. Raptors in this game take no joke, 5 shotgun shells to take down one of them. There is no way you have enough ammo to clear, I would say, even half of the dinos in this game. Maybe if you're an expert, maybe you can figure it out. I'm playing on normal. There's normal and easy off the bat, but it is definitely way more challenging, and you're running from dinosaurs a lot more than you would in any other Resident Evil game. You got to run from most things, I'd say, in this game. And I think it works okay. It just takes a lot of adjustment, I would say. Because I was thinking about it like a remake. I'm like, well, if they did a remake of this game, they would have to let you probably shoot more dinos because people would probably get annoyed having to run away from all these things. And one thing that ties into that is the game has some interesting mechanics that I do think is cool to help separate it from Resident Evil. And one is you have a crafting system like you do in some Resident Evil games. But with a lot of these things, you can mix stuff together to make darts that put dinosaurs to sleep. And there's different levels of darts. One that you have to take multiple shots on them, they'll put them to sleep. One that's a one shot and they'll stay asleep for longer. So a lot of that is tranquilizing dinosaurs, which is interesting because, they're eventually going to wake up. So it's something you got to think about the whole time you're going through. So there is some interesting management in that way. There's a couple things the game gives you, some tools, I should say, or traps to help you deal with dinosaurs. There's some laser walls you can hit up to stop the dinosaurs from chasing you. And this is kind of throughout the game. So if you're running and you want to block some off, you can for a little bit, but it's usually not enough where you can block them and you can just leave them there for the rest of the game. You do have to run by them again eventually. So it's something you got to deal with. But what's cool about that is you can shoot a dino or whatever if you're stuck behind there. Because if you try to take a dino one-on-one just with your pistol, you're going to get destroyed. No question about it. So you have to do this. There's also, you can't see your health. You have no idea what your health is. Like a Resident Evil game, you can see your status, you're fine, your caution or like that. You can't see that here. The only way you can tell is by Regina herself. She'll kind of do a different animation or she'll start limping, which I think is fine, but it is just kind of strange at the time they did that. One cool thing is they added this bleeding mechanic. So if you get attacked, you can sometimes bleed, which is hemorrhaging. I think it eventually stops after a while, but when you're hemorrhaging, you're leaving blood trails. And dinosaurs, I believe, can smell it. And so they'll come chase you more often if they smell your blood, which I think is a cool idea, especially for a PS1 game I really like. There's also certain encounters where it's like a quick time event almost. For instance, it's like a little cutscene shows Regina walking through, a dinosaur busts through the wall, and you can kind of shake him off and throw him, and he'll hit electricity or something and die like that. There's a couple occasions where you need to do wiggle the D-pad or something to save Regina for some stuff. Because I believe if you don't, some of them it's instant death. I think there's what are they called? The flying ones, not pterodactyls, but like that. They pick you up, and if you don't wiggle off with the quick time event or whatever, they'll drop you in a propeller or something like that, a spinning fan. So that's kind of interesting. There's also a whole story, of course, why these dinosaurs are here. I'm not going to spoil that for you because I think it's kind of interesting. But the whole thing is it's at this research facility, very umbrella kind of facility like that. They're trying to harness some energy or develop some new type of energy. So there's a whole backstory like that. It reminded me, Colin, when we did Dead Rising, how they had the whole plot about them trying to, grow more meat or something like that.
Yeah.
It's always trying to do something like that in their games. I appreciate that. Some lore behind why they're doing what they're doing. But yeah, it's a interesting game. Some of the puzzles are pretty tough. There's this one where you have to move pipes and stack them a certain way, and you have to use 6 switches, and they're all lined up in really weird ways. And my brain was just getting fried doing these puzzles. Some of them are pretty tough. There's a lot of puzzles in the game that are passwords, and you have to like decode them in certain ways. It's like, hey, if you get the number 1 shows up, you have like a key thing. It shows you like 1, 2, 3, 4. So that would be A, B, C, D and stuff like that in the alphabet. So there's stuff like that. Then there's stuff later on getting dealing with rows. Kind of interesting, but you do a lot of the same ones throughout the game. Also, there's this really cool thing is you're Regina and you have this squad with you, these 2 other dudes. And throughout the game, all of them are kind of different personalities. And the 2 other NPCs with you, they're very like opposite of each other. So throughout the game, they give you there's points in the game where you choose certain things. Like, do you want to go with this character or go with this character? One character is going to take like a more technical route and you'll have to deal with passwords and like do exploring, get items. The other one is like running, gunning, dealing with dinosaurs, all that kind of stuff. So there's stuff like that sprinkled throughout the game, which adds replay value, which I think is really cool. I always appreciate that, especially like Resident Evil 3 did that. But there's no time limit when you can pick, or you have to pick, so it gives you time to think about all that stuff. There hasn't been like really any boss fights yet or anything. There's a couple where you just run from a T-Rex. The T-Rex is really cool in the game, though, by the way. He like busts through glass really early on and eats some corpse. It's really awesome. The game looks pretty good, I would say. It's not pre-rendered backgrounds, which is interesting. This was a later PS1 game, so it's like fully 3D environments compared to like Resident Evil 1 and 2, those pre-rendered backgrounds. The music in some of it is pretty bad, I would say. It was like making me lose my mind. Some like the dramatic music reminded me of Resident Evil Director's Cut. Not quite that bad in some of the music, but it was not good. But overall, I think the game's pretty cool. It is not an easy survival horror game to get into if you're new to the genre, I would say. If you've only put a Resident Evil, you're going to have to learn to deal with a lot of things. You're not going to be able to shoot stuff that often. You're going to have to learn to run away a lot more. So it does take an interesting path to try to make itself different from Resident Evil, because it is Mikami doing this game also. And I think there's some charm to it. I don't think it's as strong as either Resident Evil 1, 2, or 3 so far, but I still think there's some charm to it. But there's a lot of puzzles. It's easy to get lost, I would say. I've had to keep notes a lot when I'm playing the game, like writing down stuff, because you have to read journals and stuff all the time too and get passcodes from all that stuff. So you're going to do a lot of reading to progress through the game. And depending on who you are, that could be cool or not. So it's just something that you're going to have to deal with. But it is an interesting game. I do want to play more, but I'm curious to get to 2 eventually, because I know 2 is like way more action from what I understand. They like definitely strayed away from the more survival aspect. So I'm curious about that. But it's still a cool game if you like survival horror games, but not as good as Resident Evil games yet. But I do want to maybe run through it one more time after just to see. But it's I'm looking forward to playing more. It's interesting. And check it out if you can, if you have premium, I guess, which isn't. Yeah. So good luck with that.
So strange.
It's so annoying. I hate it.
No trophies too.
I don't know what Capcom is so frustrating with these old games. They put out Resident Evil 1 and 2 on PC, but it's on GOG only for some reason. So you can't get it on Steam. You can't get it on any other console. It's like they're so weird and stingy about their old ports. It's like, how is there not a Resident Evil collection yet of all these games when they've done like a million collections already? Bothers me. But that's a whole nother topic.
Capcom's been good about doing the collections. I wouldn't be surprised to see some kind of Resident Evil thing.
Yeah, I hope so. You would think they would have done it by now.
You would think they would have done it by now. It's weird that their number one franchise is the one without a collection. But,
yeah,
good for Mega Man fans. Good for Colin and I.
It's like we got a Zero collection before Resident Evil.
We got a Mega Man Zero collection. I'm very happy about that because I never played those games and they were amazing. So.
But we got like the Disney Afternoon collection and stuff. It's like you don't have a Resident Evil collection. Yeah. It's like, all right, Capcom, whatever. But I'm curious, have any of you guys played Dino Crisis or any experience with it?
Yeah, I played it when I was, it came out when I was in 10th grade. I never played the sequel. There was a sequel to it. I think it was the next year.
There's 2 sequels, yeah.
Oh, are there? Yeah, maybe there are.
One, the third one is Xbox only.
Oh, yeah, that's probably why I don't know it. Yeah, that's right. There is a Dino Crisis 3, I guess. What's cool about it is the game was written and designed by Shu Takumi, who ended up writing and designing and creating Phoenix Wright, and is the voice of Phoenix Wright in Japan, or was. I don't know if he is anymore. He also did that game Ghost Trick on DS, which I never played.
Oh, nice.
So I always find that interesting when there's like this different stylistic feel of the different things they come up with, because I think Shu Takumi worked on Resident Evil 2 as well. But yeah, the stuff with PlayStation Plus Premium is strange with this and Resident Evil Director's Cut. I just from a I don't know what anyone gets out of this kind of situation. There aren't a lot of people at the premium level. I mean, I'm sure it's drawing some people up to play it, but why would Capcom want to seal its games behind that when they can sell them a la carte, unless they're getting some sort of money, which they probably are, but then it's like, how much could it possibly be? And the trophy thing I think is strange, but I don't necessarily mind it. It's unfortunate, but I don't want Sony to make it so difficult that Capcom's just like not going to put games, or other third parties won't put their games on because they don't want to put too much work into it. But it would be nice for Sony to kind of help leverage some of their own expertise, and the external studio they have putting all of their games on can maybe do some of these third party quality games too, to make things kind of more equal, bring some equilibrium to it. But yeah, Dino Crisis is, like you said, it's Mikami and it's interesting, and it's also a product of its time. Man, dinosaurs were big in the 90s.
Yeah, sure were.
Huge.
Oh yeah, there's Jurassic Park influence all over this game.
Definitely,
it's crazy. Gene, any experience with Dino Crisis?
Not really. I wish I did. I definitely played it back in the day, and I remember being very, very confused. And I thought it was difficult. I thought it was way different than Resident Evil. I don't know. I don't remember why. I remember the T-Rex fight being really shitty, and I was just like, I'm good. I don't want to play this anymore.
Yeah, I'm watching a long play of it now. I don't remember any of this. So
yeah, I don't remember jack shit of it. But I remember I didn't like it, and I totally got filtered, and I haven't really been interested in it. So I'm, people. I would love. I guess count me as one of those Philistine people who would be down for a remake just because it's modernized. I know I just got done bitching about the over the shoulder camera, but if they did that for Dino Crisis, I'd be there day one.
Yeah, I think if they remade it, they would just have to do some stuff. Oh, this leads into the question. This is from Javin Mather or Javen. Salacious Summoning Studs. If we actually get some manner of a Dino Crisis remake, what do you want it to be? Of course, when Resident Evil 2 and 3 remake hit, the presumption was that it'd be amazing for a Dino Crisis game to be styled after those. But if they did that, would it perhaps feel a bit redundant, but with dinosaurs? Or should a prospective remake go in a different direction and or feature some kind of super unique mechanic to it, at least to differentiate it from the RE remakes? I think if they remake this game, it should be similar to the Resident Evil remakes. Very similar, but like I said, Dino Crisis has a few mechanics that could separate. Like the bleeding mechanic is like a big thing they could really lean into a lot more. Like imagine Regino going through this area and like blood, her bleeding and stuff like that, and like more dinosaurs kind of being aware of her and like chasing you through some of the area. It's kind of cool because throughout the game in Dino Crisis, sometimes a dinosaur will bust in somewhere and you don't really expect it to. So you don't really feel completely safe anywhere except for the safe rooms. It's not like in Resident Evil where you can like go through a door and most of the zombies won't come through it. Like sometimes a raptor will follow you. So if they really leaned into that kind of stuff, the dinosaurs following you more, I think that'd be really cool. And they kind of have this box mechanic where there's boxes on the wall that give you resources, but you need like certain items to do that. They could really lean into that more. They kind of act like the box you get in Resident Evil games, but they're just very specific ones that have specific things. So they could dive into that. And I think you just need to be able to shoot dinosaurs more and actually kill them more for people to really enjoy it, actually. Because I think if it's like it is now, I think a lot of people will bounce off it. Kind of like how a lot of people bounced off in the 90s. So they'd have to really think about that.
Yep, pretty much. I bounced off too. So.
Yep. I think a lot of people did. And I can totally see why. All right. Gene, surprise game. You've been playing Horizon Forbidden West. Why are you playing this, first of all?
For many reasons. Well, one, I literally just published an article as we were recording about Lego Horizon. I did a little interview with Guerrilla Games and Studio Gobo, the co-developer studio, and Lego itself. So go check it out. Go check out WashingtonPost.com. But I basically talked with Lego, and Lego was like, we were working with PlayStation on Horizon. It was really the first time we were working directly with a gaming IP, because Lego has worked with Star Wars and Lego has worked with Lord of the Rings, but Mario, Lego's partnership with Mario always made sense, but it just came out recently, and Horizon and the tall neck was really the genesis of Lego Horizon, where the game side of Lego, they're the big Horizon fans, and they really wanted to basically make a Lego Horizon tall neck, and they were like, well, Lego pitched the idea to Gorilla, saying, hey, we really love Horizon and we really love making this tall neck. It'd be pretty cool if we just made a whole Lego game. And Gorilla was like, oh yeah, totally. So that's how, and it started a couple years ago. Before even 2022 when the tall neck came out, and that was in coordination with Forbidden West too. So there's that, and also really, Forbidden West, of course, famously came out at the same time as Elden Ring, right? And I reviewed Forbidden West, and I really, really enjoyed it. And then Elden Ring came out, and then like most people, it just wiped so much of Forbidden West from my brain, especially for people who are really looking forward to Elden Ring. That also, on top of, is also the same year I got diagnosed with cancer, because it happened a couple months afterwards. So I just didn't really go back to Forbidden West. Burning Shores came out around the time when I was sick. And unfortunately, a lot of Burning Shores got spoiled for me. Kotaku spoiled one part of the story, which was really, really stupid, and that was when I ended up blocking Kotaku completely. And a lot of people kept posting videos of the final boss in Burning Shores, which looks incredible. And I know that I know. Trust me, I'm very self-aware that I'm the guy who always talks about spoilers. But I was upset that I got spoiled about Burning Shores, and it was a cool boss fight, and I wish I would have seen that on my 4K screen in HDR on my PS5 as opposed to on fucking Twitter. So I want to give Forbidden West another chance. I love the game. I really enjoyed my time with it. I remember playing it and really, really enjoying the story. I really enjoyed the pull of the story. Again, everything that happened in Zero Dawn, quote unquote, didn't matter, or it wasn't enough. So Aloy needs to fix the network that is rebuilding the planet. And the network is cleverly called Gaia, and she needs to go around different parts of the West, California, San Francisco, where there's so many Asians there too, apparently.
A lot of Asians.
Very diverse cast, Horizon, but I really enjoyed the game, and I really enjoyed the story. Carrie Ann Moss's character. Ultimately, I think her character didn't turn out to be much, but before that, it was it was very intriguing, and it was written really well. I all the problems I have with Forbidden West story are just really at the end. The fact that it's a mega cliffhanger. I haven't felt that much tease, and it is probably a good thing and a bad thing, but I haven't felt that much tease since Halo 2's finished the fight sequence, where I was like, that's it. I want more, or I wish there was more resolution, and I guess I'm really looking forward to the next one. So I'm really looking. I'm actually really excited for Horizon 3. I don't know. I don't know if people know, but I really like the story of Horizon. I like the world. I like it for the same many reasons why Colin does, which is why I think it's fun to bring up Horizon Forbidden West and have Colin here, because I know Colin doesn't really have a lot of comrades in arms and praising the praises of Horizon.
His head.
No one seems to like Horizon at all.
Yeah. Nobody really likes Horizon that much, and I'm probably the closest person to actually really like Horizon quite a bit, because even after Elden Ring, I was like, yeah, I had a good time with Horizon. There were moments in that game that were really beautiful, like in a spiritual level. There's one sequence, and I won't spoil it, but there's one sequence where you have to put up a light show, and I remember playing that mission, and I was really excited to see the light show. I was like, I'm finishing this mission so I can see it, so I can see what happens in the game, there was a strong attachment to what there was going on. So, the combat system is great, and I never finished New Game Plus, but I'm actually starting a fresh new save, Forbidden West. So I'm actually really, really not that far. I'm still at the beginning part where, you have to deal with the embassy and all that. But even the opening sequence and the opening areas are so gorgeous. So yeah, as Colin was saying, Horizon is probably one of the easily one of the most gorgeous games out there. It's a good game to justify the cost of the PS5. It's a good game to show off what the PS5 looks like. That's why I'm trying to get to Burning Shores. And it's a little bit of a Colin approach too, where I feel like I need to earn my way back into Burning Shores, because I memory hold so much of Forbidden West. I don't remember anything at all, other than Gaia and the cool fight at the end and Carrie-Anne Moss saying a bunch of stuff that confused me for a little bit, certain sequences, and but it just doesn't really fit together all in my head completely. So I want to be able to rebuild that memory of Horizon Forbidden West properly before I even go into Burning Shores and experience what that is like. Because I really want to see Burning Shores, and I want to see this PS5 exclusive Horizon content. So yeah, that's pretty much why I've been playing Forbidden West. It's spots here and there, but I do want to. Like even when I was playing Silent Hill 2, I was like, man, I wish I was playing Forbidden West again, though. Silent Hill 2 is so depressing, and it does get a little long in the tooth and a little boring in some parts, Silent Hill 2, especially since, there's just like no enemy variety, All
right.
And yeah, enemy variety should not matter in a game like Silent Hill 2, and if you know what Silent Hill 2 is about, then you should know what I'm talking about. But they made Silent Hill. Sorry to make this a bitch fest about Silent Hill 2 again, but they made Silent Hill 2 more of an action game, and they're throwing a lot of enemies at you, and it's a lot of the same type of enemies. Whereas in Horizon, there's so many different types of monsters and enemies. You get a mount at the end of Forbidden West that is incredible and just opens the game up beautifully. And I never really got a chance to use that mount in any meaningful way. So that's kind of why I wish I did start a New Game Plus, because you get to start with that mount at the beginning of the game. But again, I really want to start a new, fresh, restart Aloy's journey, kind of really invest myself in that, as opposed to a New Game Plus one where I'm like, oh, well, let me get this upgrade. I kind of don't want to sully a more fresh-minded run of Forbidden West. Because even when I reviewed Forbidden West, the whole time I was thinking, oh, fuck, Elden Ring's coming out soon, though. Elden Ring, though. So that
was like a week later.
That fucked me up. Where I don't think I was really giving Forbidden West the kind of love that I wanted to give it. And I always regretted it when I finished it. So yeah, count me as one of the folks who played Elden Ring and actually didn't forget about Forbidden West the whole time. I wanted to go back to it, and now I am finally.
Yeah, well, it's good to hear you're enjoying it. I enjoy that game also. I don't love it or anything. I think it's great. I think it's a great game though. But
camera angles too. I love that it has a dynamic camera angle, so it goes left and right. So like you're just never bored at seeing your character take up the left side of the screen all the time. It always feels like that the world and the camera and the game is kind of responding to your own movements. And the FOV is pulled far back, so you get to really appreciate the beauty and the landscape of this world that they designed. And of course, it's dinosaurs and robots. It appeals to this lizard brain 1980s child, the 1980s child that I grew up in, where it's like Mask and G.I. Joe, where it's like robots and dinosaurs, put them together. It's like peanut butter and chocolate.
Yeah,
makes sense.
The robot dinosaurs are cool. I don't think the humans are that cool in that game to fight, but I think the dinosaurs are awesome. They're so sick. I want to read this from T-Dot real quick. This is from T-Dot's Finest 82. Hey, Summoners, the Horizon series is my favorite series of games, so this obviously comes from a place of bias, but I always wondered why Horizon, and Aloy specifically, gets so many points docked for people's dislike of the main character. There are many games with great gameplay and a polarizing or just forgettable main character, yet they remain highly regarded games. Nothing about controlling Link stokes the fires, but the gameplay is so great, so who cares? I'd argue Horizon has the best open world checkbox style gameplay of any game, especially in recent memory. Fighting dinosaurs in a genre that's so underserved, and this game does it in spectacular fashion. Why the hate on the series?
Now, I have a lot to say on this. I do agree. I laughed because I laughed at T Dot's sentence because it sounds like he's acknowledging that Aloy is a forgettable main character. Because it's like, look, there's other games with forgettable main characters, and everyone loves that shit, right?
Yeah.
I think Aloy is not that forgettable. I think my problem with Aloy in particular is that she is always way too serious. Almost every line of dialogue or every interaction she has with another person is always like mission minded. Like we gotta do this, and everything she says is with so much urgency. Even when she finds, for example, Aaron at the beginning of Forbidden West, and Aaron is a repeat character from Zero Dawn, who was madly in love with Aloy, the biggest Aloy simp. One of the funniest things about the Horizon series in general is how every man absolutely just falls head over heels in love with Aloy. Every male main character is smitten with her. Mm-hmm. But Aaron in particular probably earned it the most because, well, he probably earned his friend zone the most. But he's firmly in the friend zone. But they haven't seen each other in such a long time. And when they first meet, Aloy smiles a little bit and is like, "Oh, Aaron, right?" And then immediately she switches up and goes into like, but the planet, the fate of the planet Earth is dependent on me. And Aaron's like, "For fuck's sake, man! Like, can we just take a break and just like say hi or whatever?" And I'm like, I'm actually feeling Aaron. He's a little frustrated, and I realize that that's part of the story, and I think that's what people get turned off on. Like Aloy doesn't really have too much of a character. She, you don't really know what her interests are other than saving the world and finding out what Zero Dawn or everything was about. So that's why Lego Horizon is interesting because like, hey, she likes hot dogs now. So giving her a little bit of personality.
Yeah, I mean, actually, Colin, let's go to you first. You love Horizon. What do you think about Aloy and all that stuff?
I don't know. I think that the hate on Aloy, I think, is somewhat overstated in like the way she comes off, in my opinion. But I understand that people don't like her. I think they've clued into that, and that's fine. You can't really talk about Aloy too much without spoiling the story, even of the first game. But if you play the games, you realize it's not really about her anyway. As far as like her current character is the conduit by which activities are happening that she is deeply connected to, both in the past and in alternate futures, in some sense, or at least one of the entities, Beta, trying to kind of fix the future or whatever.
I totally forgot about Beta.
And and
see, these are characters that I didn't replay Forbidden West for. I totally forgot about Beta. Holy shit!
And Elizabeth Sobek or whatever. The main character is Elizabeth Sobek. And you don't really ever know her. Iterations of her and recordings and all the rest. So I think it's actually well said in the letter where it's like, why people are just unusually hard on her, on not on her particularly, but why it matters towards how good the game is. Like to me, Horizon is fairly immaculate as far as gameplay is concerned. It's undeniably beautiful. You'd have to be fucking blind not to see that. I think the idea is novel. Never seen anything like this idea, especially in something as saturated as dystopia and post-apocalyptic, whatever.
I love the idea. I love the science fiction of it. That the story, it's unique.
And ultimately, what it becomes, what it's about, especially in Zero Dawn, is super cool. But what it ends up becoming about in Forbidden West is fucking crazy. And I remember saying that at the time the game came out when we did our spoiler cast. We went into it, but it's about something else. And you'll never guess it. And you'll never, and I think it's really well done. It becomes about, it's about wealth. Like the game's about the haves and have-nots, and this kind of sci-fi plot around people that fuck shit up and people that are trying to save it. And people that want to use what the people who are trying to save everything, they want to use what they've what they've saved to fix their own situation. Again,
and who's accountable for it?
Yeah. Right, exactly. Like there's a deep story behind even the facade of the story itself, which in and of itself is cool. And I'm kind of bummed that people don't seem to give a shit. Like it's cool that it's not interesting or whatever to some people, but I actually think that a lot of people that have dismissed Horizon didn't play it or don't get it. And that's fine. But, and I don't mean it in like a pejorative, like you don't get it. It's like, no, you're not seeing the subtext, I don't think. If you don't think that the story is captivating. There's one particular, I can't even get into it, but there's one particular, because I don't want to spoil it, but there's one particular cutscene that sticks out to me where I'm like, this is incredible. Like great storytelling, and post-apocalyptic stuff is often about survival. But what's interesting about Horizon is that enough time has passed since the events that led to the robot dinosaurs and everything that people are living again and not surviving, but living, and that the memories of what has happened are lost, truly lost. And I always think about that anthropologically, archaeologically, when I watch this random shit that I watch about history. And, you know, you listen to Graham Hancock talk about the ancient civilizations and all of the rest. And it's like, everything's just gone. Like at some point there's evidence if you know where to find it, but it's really just gone and no one really knows at all. And then there comes a point where you don't, even if you're curious and you know to be curious, it doesn't matter. Like what happened to the great seafaring ancient civilization? It's like, I have no fucking idea. It doesn't seem to really matter at all. We can explore, but like we're so detached from it that it plays no part in our lives. And that's where the people in the world of Horizon are. They just accept it. And that in and of itself is crazy, but actually underneath the surface is this insane sci-fi situation about the end of the world and people realizing the world's going to end and doing everything they can to make sure that they can fix it. It's so unique. Like everything about it. And that's what bums me out. It's not just the robot dinosaurs and all that. It's actually, I can't really draw many corollaries between almost any part of the story and like some obvious thing that it comes from. And certainly when I write my own stories, which are nowhere near as good as Horizon's, I grab fucking liberally from things where if you really knew, you would know exactly where things came from. Like if you really thought about it, you'd be like, oh yeah, Interstellar and this and that. It's like, yeah. But when I look at this, I'm like, I don't know. It's kind of cool. And so the games sell materially very well. People clearly like them. They also review really well. It's unclear to me what the reality of Horizon is. Is it as bad as it seems to be, where it really is this game? If you believe the scuttlebutt about Horizon in core gaming circles generally, this is the most peculiar big game in existence. You know, just from who the fuck likes this?
24 million copies for Zero Dawn. That's so much.
It's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, even if it's $10, $20, $30 sometimes, and it has been for a long time, it's like, it's a lot of people playing your game. And
that's a lot of saturation.
Right. Yeah. And more power to them, because I think Horizon I'm being facetious, but it's almost like we don't deserve Horizon. They give us something like really unique. I love Uncharted, but it's derivative of other things. I love The Last of Us, but we all read The Road. I mean, it's cool. It's dope. You know, I love Ratchet and Clank. We've been playing it for 22 years. They give you something like Horizon and everyone's like, it's like, get out of here.
Oh, but Spider-Man though, Spider-Man.
Oh yeah, we got to get. It's like, come on, like,
oh, Venom though. We've never seen a character like Venom before, right? No, yeah, we have.
And I know that I know that there's a joke about Zelda and it kind of obscuring it in some way, like a lunar eclipse, right? And it just fucking messes the entire thing up. But I don't think it's that. There is something that matters in the moment, but Horizon still found its way and yet hasn't gotten the respect. And I personally, for one, am very eager about the third game because the story is nuts. I mean, by the end of Horizon Forbidden West, I haven't actually played through Burning Shores. And I probably I bought it and I played it a little bit, but
let's do a Burning Shores spoiler cast.
Yeah, we should.
Like way after the iron is cold.
Yeah, exactly. Like no one gives a shit.
By the forge, as they say in Horizon,
because it just came out too late. It's just like I'm not into it anymore. You know, like I'm like, oh, what happened and what is this upgrade and how do I use this weapon? I'm just not
exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of systems in the game too. That's another reason why I'm not doing New Game Plus. Like I have all these fucking abilities that I don't even know about. Like let me relearn these abilities, and because the game is a really complicated game mechanically, gameplay wise. I think a lot of people don't give it enough credit. And I feel bad for I hate seeing all these these Twitter videos being like, oh, Horizon combat is amazing and their gameplay sucks, and it's like, you know,
it's running around. You know? It's incredibly elegant. Like it's a totally elegant game if you know how to play it. And this is why I believe that actually I think they're oversaturating Horizon, and I think they're putting it in a danger zone if all of these games and projects are real. And some of them we know are like Lego Horizon's real. The Horizon re-release is real. Those are real, but it's like, is there really going to be an MMO and a multiplayer game plus the third game plus at some point a TV show and all the rest? But I look at it and I'm like, yes, I actually think that the multiplayer thing is going to benefit the series a great deal because the game is a pleasure to play. And if you reduce it down to that and remove the Aloy virus that a lot of people see in the franchise in some sense, then you have nothing left to really bitch about. And then it's going to become about the gameplay and the way it fuses with a really nice world and all those robot dinosaurs and all the rest. Is going to be fucking sick. So I don't mind that. But I do wonder if there's enough juice there for them to squeeze out of the Horizon fruit. With all of these different projects. I wish they would treat it, in other words, with a little more care, but we haven't. It's not that we've reached that point of no return. It's that I can see it. If all of these projects are real, it's like, wow, it's a lot of Horizon. And by the time you get to the third game, it's like, well, now you've really ruined it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's one fear, but I think the game's going to do really well in a multiplayer environment. And I might even play in that, depending on what the game ends up being.
Yeah, I assume it's going to be co-op, just bringing down dinosaurs together, which sounds like Monster Hunter or something. Like, if it's like Monster Hunter, like, then I'm way into that. I just want to address T-Dots here. Like, I'll say for my opinion on Forbidden West is, I think it's a great game, but I think Aloy is extremely uninteresting and kind of annoying, especially at the beginning before they patched it, because she would not shut the fuck up. She was constantly talking, constantly about anything. Oh, I better pick this up. Oh, put this in my stash. It's just like fucking constantly.
That's right. I remember that. Okay,
and Gene, you're saying when she's talking to people, I don't remember if it was like this in the first game, because it's been a while. The first game, people were way more behind Aloy in the first game. Yeah. It seems like the second game was when people started to really kind of sour on her, myself included.
Yeah, because she's not giving out the pussy, you know. So all these blue ball men are just like freaking out. They're so clogged up with jizz that they can't fucking know how to deal with her, you know?
Oh boy.
Yes, that is the reason.
That's how I interpret Forbidden West. Again, a reason why I have to replay this game. You know?
Well, it's because whoever was the acting, the dialogue director, or like whoever told her how to speak. Like every time Aloy talks in this game, she's always like out of breath. Oh my god, it's real serious, that kind of thing. It's like the entire fucking game, and that's why when they did Lego Horizon, I heard her laugh, and that I was like, this is immediately way more charming of a character that has a kind of a personality right now. So this is good. I like this. The fact that she loves like hot dogs or something is just so stupid, but at least it's something for her to give her a little bit of personality. And I really just don't give a fuck about the tribes in this game. Like anyone else in this game, I don't know. It's just me. Like, I don't really care about anything. I think the story with like the Carry-On Moss characters and all that stuff is actually really cool. And I do like that a lot. But everyone else and their fucking tribes and they're worshiping their robo-dinos or whatever, I don't know, their ceremonies. It's like, I don't really give a shit about any of this, guys. I don't know. But that's probably just me. And I
actually don't give a shit about the inter-tribe stuff either. It's about the bigger story that is fascinating.
Yeah.
And like what gets us to the sci-fi.
One of the tribes I remember in Forbidden West is when they worship this platoon of U.S. Army soldiers.
Yes,
and that's where Colin is kind of talking about how on an anthropological level, we forget about the great seafaring people of the past or the great Vikings of the past or whatever. But these were great warriors, man. You know. But think about now. Who is going to think about General MacArthur thousands of years later? You know, I was literally just thinking about this as I was playing Forbidden West. I was like, I valorized so many people in World War II, but we're still fairly close to people to World War II. All those men are dead. Most of them are dead now. You know. Think about how people are going to feel about them in thousands. Are they going to be completely forgotten, or will they become gods? You know, that's the fun thing. Those are the fun thought experiments that I think Horizon, introduces to my head.
Yeah. I just like the side characters in the game, like Beta or whatever, and like Aloy's like friends. Like, I don't give a fuck about any of these people. I think if they can
with the dreadlocks with the black dude.
It's
like he's another simp. He's another simp of Aloy's.
I can't remember.
I think
there's so many simps.
What's his name? Yeah, what the fuck is his name?
I'll look it up.
I literally just fucking played the game 2 days ago.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think if in the sequel, if they can kind of just make the characters a little more likable, it'll go a long way for the game. Because I think the gameplay is awesome. And like we said, visually, the game is an excellent showpiece for PS5. It's so good looking. It runs really well.
Varl,
that's it. Yeah.
For Christ's sake. Yeah.
They need to just work on that stuff. All the character writing and like the voice acting direction, they got to work on that shit. And
I remember Aaron. So it's not like the Horizon doesn't have unmemorable characters, but I think Varl was not the best character. So
I think that's like most of the characters. I think most of the characters are not just at a high level of engagement. Like I'm thinking of Aloy comparing to Jin Sakai. I was like, yo, at the end of Ghost of Tsushima or whatever, Jin I was ride or die with the whole way. But Aloy, I'm like, yeah, you're right, whatever, it's fine. If you're the next one, cool. If you're not, whatever.
It's funny because I'm looking at a list of characters now, and it's like it's all I don't care about any of these tribal characters really myself. I care about like Ted Farrow and Tate and like all of these characters.
Yes, I'm exactly what we call it. Like Ted Farrow is a name that I will never forget. But you're kind of like dealing with enemies from another time. And there's like a whole. You're dealing with them through proxies and through memories and all of the rest, and that's where the interesting shit is. Yeah, all the intertribal stuff gives the world life, which I appreciate, but I'm not interested in their tribal politics and stuff like that. That's not what I'm interested in either. So I totally relate to that. But I think that people don't give enough credit to the overarching.
I think so too.
I agree. what the game is about. And
no, I agree.
Yeah.
Also, Aloy is a Mary Sue, where she can do everything, and all the story revolves around her. But like as Colin said, the story is specifically written around her and for her, right? But she does get a lot of flack for that, and characters like Clive don't. But Clive Rossfield in Final Fantasy 16 was absolutely Mary Sue. He was built that way. He was written that way.
Clive also gets his ass kicked a lot. And it gets really fucked up.
Actually, that's true, yeah.
And I don't give a shit about if Aloy is a Mary Sue. I don't really care about that. It's just if I like her and I think she's enjoyable and well written.
She could loosen up a little bit for sure. We could hear her laugh. Yeah. Again, when she smiles when she sees Aaron, and it disappears like immediately, and it's like, man, you're so pretty when you smile, though, man. Come on, lady, smile.
Smile give sometimes. Come on, smile, sweetheart.
Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't need to. Yeah, it's not like that. It's just like she's just one note the whole game. Yeah, and it bothers me.
Well, if we're joking, but it does feel like an overcorrection of but she has to be a very, very strong woman, and it's like, okay, she doesn't need to be that strong, guys. She can.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the character being flawed or anything like that. I mean, I guess her flaw is that people don't like her that much, but we'll see if they change that in the sequel, because they totally could. They can make her likable. And like Aloy was so big when the first game came out. Everyone loved Aloy. She's all over. She was even in Genshin Impact. People loved her.
Yeah.
But they dropped the ball in some way in Forbidden West. So I don't know. Maybe they don't give a shit, or maybe they'll change something. I don't know. But I guess we'll see in the future.
Yeah, I had a viral tweet though, because every time you watch a YouTuber and they try to cover Horizon, and they say, "Oh yeah, and the character Aloy is over there," and it's like, they're all fucking British or Australian, and then it's like you clearly didn't fucking play the game.
Yeah, I didn't play that shit
because they never stop saying Aloy,
Mm-hmm. Aloy. This is from Ding Dong.
Like Ramirez from Call of Duty, the Modern Warfare 2,
Hey, Aloy, baby, show me a smile, huh?
Hey, what's your smile, Aloy? Show me a smile. You'd be a lot more pretty if you smiled.
Does it ever go by a New York construction site?
Yeah.
Oh, they love her.
All right, this is from Ding Dong. Hey guys, hope you're doing well. I noticed Gene is playing Horizon Forbidden West. I recently platinumed the game along with the DLC, and like Colin said, it's probably the most beautiful console game ever made. Have you all played the DLC? What do you think about the choice at the end? I was a bit thrown off when I got there because I didn't really pick up on anything between those two characters beforehand. Also, Colin, I listened to the spoiler casts, and I totally thought that the character showed some traits of being on the spectrum.
Well, I would know.
Yeah. I played the DLC. I did play it, and it was definitely hard to come back to, like you were saying, Gene. Like I was like, what the fuck am I doing in this game? How do I play this game again? Because you have like so much stuff at the end.
I tried to start it, and I was like, what the fuck is this world?
Yeah,
even? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it took me a while to it took me like over an hour to get like back into the swing of things and all that stuff. The DLC was all right. The choice you make at the end of the game or whatever, it's like, it's funny that they do give you a choice with that, but I didn't really like feel the connection or whatever between them at all.
Is it a relationship thing?
Kind of, yeah. I was just like,
I think that's the thing. I think that's the thing Kotaku spoiled for me, and it's like, what the fuck, And also, that's what I thought too. I was like, where did that come from? Anyways, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, I don't know. I was like, whatever. Like, but a lot of my problem with Horizon is the character writing, so maybe that's why I also wasn't just feeling it. But I don't know. Maybe it was just me. But that's Horizon Forbidden West. Is that on Extra now?
I don't know. I can look.
I want to say it was or something like that, but it's on PC now too. Also, so if you're curious about it, you can check it out. Mm-hmm. Definitely some fun to be had there, though. So
I've been playing the PS5 version.
Yeah.
Just want to continue that and have it look pretty as possible. It'll be fun to play it on PS5 Pro in a couple weeks.
Yeah, the enhancement will probably be really nice.
It was pulled off of.
It was pulled. Okay,
in August.
But
Sony
the Zero Dawn
valuing their IP.
Yeah, the Zero Dawn remaster, whatever remake of it's coming out on Halloween actually too. So if you've never played Horizon, it might not be a bad time to hop in.
Yeah, I'll be glad to upgrade, but I'm just gonna wait until the third one is coming, and then I'll replay everything at that point. Refamiliarize myself with it.
Yeah. All right, boys, time for Sort It Out. On this segment, we just talk about something that's bothering us in the game industry that needs sorting. Could be a game, could be a company, could be anything like that. Just relating to the game industry. Colin, let's start with you. Who needs sorting?
I think again the culture warriors need sorting. I've seen what's been going on with my new friend Abu Bakr Salim, and who's the writer of and creator of Kenzera, Tales of Kenzera Zhao. And I continue to believe that there are lots of valuable conversations to be had about social issues in games, about representation, about whatever. And I think that people that listen to these shows know that I'm actually pretty conservative person on this point, I guess, in that I believe that representation for representation's sake is maybe even counterproductive, and rather what you want. And this is actually something that me and Abu Bakr talked about on our show we did together, where I was like, I use James Bond as an example, where I'm like, we don't need a black James Bond or a Hispanic James Bond. We need a black character that's a new character that's black, and that's great. And he could be totally coded in quotes as James Bond, but we don't need to go that far with representation. But I also had him on the show, as people might recall, because I felt like his particular game was being sucked into this vortex of social issues and contextless arguments that weren't rooted in what the game was. And I thought it was a pretty extraordinary game, actually, from a lot of perspectives, and was a lot of fun, and was not quote unquote woke in by any stretch of the imagination. It's about loss, and it's about, there's no white people in the game. It's just all black people. That's not woke. And I think that a lot of this is what I said on the show to him, and this is what I'll say again, is like, a lot of the stuff that is being argued about comes off as racist. And that's different than what people are saying. In other words, there's a whole argument in corners of the industry, which I think are reasonable, about why are we forcing this in, or why are we changing the gender or race of this existing character and all that kind of stuff. And I think those are valuable conversations to have. And I think a lot of that is unfairly maligned as being like, they hate women and they hate this and stuff. And I'm like, that's totally counterproductive too, and is worthy of ridicule as well. The people that love Princess Leia hate Star Wars with movies with women in them. You know, like the people that love Lando hate black people in Star Wars. Like none of that, I'm not saying any of that washes either. And that stuff should be ridiculed, right? The people that love Alien and Terminator and all get out of here, you know? Mm-hmm. So there's like a reactionary nature to both of these arguments, or both of these sides, that I think are counterproductive. But with that said, there's no doubt that the conversation around, like, do we need to wedge in every race? Do people need to feel represented in everything they experience? All of that has been conflated in many corners with, there's black people in this. And now we're going to make like a big deal about it. I saw this with Subnautica, the sequel to Subnautica or whatever, where it's like, I think it's like a black guy and an Asian woman or something are the characters, the playable characters. And people are like, look, it's woke. And I'm like, well, what's woke about that? Yeah. Like, I think you guys are losing the plot. And if you don't realize that it comes off as racist, and in some senses, I think is racist, then that's your right, I guess. But I'm going to call that out. I just think, where is the careful consideration of the facts? Where are the educated, interesting people that can talk about this with depth and can see through all of the nonsense to get to the issues at hand without coming off as bigoted or as dismissive, depending on what side you come on, you're on. So I just think that these people need to continue to be checked, because I think it is in this case the definition of reactionary. When you are reacting to, an Asian woman or a black person or whatever, just because they exist as these new characters. They didn't say, like, I don't know anything about Subnautica, but I think I played it. I don't really remember, to be honest. But it's like, oh, there's like a white male pilot or whatever, or captain, and in the first game, and then in the second game, it's still him, but they just made him into a black guy. It's like, okay, that's weird, but that's not what happened here. So like, why is your instinct to be upset about something? It's just like, is everything this bad? It can't be. I just don't believe it. And I think that we're like losing sight of obvious targets and things that are, so I've said this before. There's that video going around of that woman where it's being basically claimed that she just didn't hire any white people for her team, and like that's racist. And like, that's the kind of shit that people should be like doubling and tripling and quadrupling down on, being like, who the fuck is this? How can you get away with doing this? Like, blatantly illegal by American hiring practices and laws, also unethical, also bigoted. It's like, yeah, destroy that shit if that's true, right? And get to the bottom of that story. But like, what are we doing? Right. And it's just so disappointing, because there's just no depth. And people are just, there's just so many. I don't like I think the term grifting is being way overused. And I don't think people even know what it means at this point, to be honest. And I don't even think it's that. I think it's sheer mental retardation on a lot of people's points of view. Like, there's like a lack of there's just, people just don't know. I came across this video about me the other day that this guy made, and I watched a little bit of it, and it was just shit talking me or whatever. But he was reading my tweets, and like I quoted him in one of the tweets, and he couldn't even read his own words like out loud, like the things he wrote. Like he had no idea what it was. I'm like, it's you. You said that. How can you not know that? And how can you're like talking about this stuff? I'm quoting you.
Yeah.
I just don't think people have the full mental capacity that are dealing with a lot of these issues. Like, no offense, like room temperature IQ shit. And we just, not to be a dickhead, just don't deal with like discourse on that level. It's just totally anathema to everything we do here. Whether or not we're silly or comical and don't take things seriously, sometimes it's different. But I don't know, man. It's really destructive, and it's not just because it's hitting someone that I care about now, but it's just because it's, what are you doing?
Right.
And how can so many people fall for it?
Yeah, people go too far always on either side, and they don't really investigate something. I think Tales of Kenzara got a lot of heat because they had Sweet Baby listed on like their consulting or something like that, and this was like prime Sweet Baby kind of era. So I think they got caught in a lot of the crossfire. And I haven't played Tales of Kenzara, so I have no idea. But it sounds like it's perfectly fine. But people just kind of see Sweet Baby associated with it, and therefore get a target put on them. And it's like, I don't really like Sweet Baby either. But like, I don't know. It's like, what are you doing? You're like complaining about them that they didn't do anything wrong, I guess.
Yeah, I don't like what they have purported to do in some things and the way they've wedged themselves in, I think, in ideologies into some of their games. But the point I was making, or the games that they've worked on, the point I made on our show about Tales of Kenzara was, if I can earn, I made the argument, I'm like, just a basic logic problem. If you believe me, and if you believe that I played and platinumed the game, and these things are true, and then if you believe when I tell you that there's like no wokeness, in quotes, in the game, and Sweet Baby worked on it, then isn't the honest takeaway from that maybe they've worked on games that they have no cultural influence on or whatever? Yeah. So people just don't want to deal with, they can't think that deeply, a lot of these people.
Right. Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah, man.
And it's a level of, I would be embarrassed to buy into things at a point where they can be demonstrably like holes can be poked into them, or they can be, arguments can be brought back down to earth, and people can speculate about what's true and what's not or whatever. And then you have to kind of back off from your position and reassess things. And I think people just get too married to how they feel. And like, they don't realize that they look stupid if they double or triple down. Like sometimes you have to reflect and have like a postmortem about why you got to it, how you believed something or thought something or whatever. And again, just all of the great shame of it is not that everyone's adults and they can deal with their own issues online. It's like the problem is that it's taking energy away from things that actually matter.
Right.
That's all.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. Right, Gene, what about you, man?
I want to jump off of what Colin says. Everything Colin says is right. And it was interesting also when he brought up identity issues about just like gender swapping and race swapping things. Because I think about a column that my colleague and columnist Alyssa Rosenberg wrote, and she's a hardcore feminist, but she wrote in 2016. This is 2016, fresh off of Clinton, and this was the climate in which Colin got canceled for being misogynist, for making an off-color joke. But she wrote in 2016, no, a woman should not be James Bond. And because she is saying that women should have great spirals, they should have new spirals, but they should not be James Bond, because a woman being James Bond would not explore the thing that James Bond movies are designed to explore, quote, what is considered desirable and admirable in a man at any given moment. James Bond is a character about men and about what men do. So if you make James Bond a woman, then it's no longer James Bond. She's just a woman spy. So I think there definitely needs to be nuance in these conversations, and we just don't see a lot of that in social media. It's just awful.
Yeah.
But,
all right. My sort out.
Do I have it sorted out? Do I need to sort it out?
Yeah. Keep going. Go for it.
I guess real quick, sorted out to content creators and game journalists. Recently, Xbox's marketing head Aaron Greenberg got quote unquote in trouble because he said nobody cares about Banjo-Kazooie. Mm-hmm. But he was just saying that in a sarcastic tone, and then a dumbass YouTuber took it seriously, and a dumbass news site took it seriously, and just went off and did that. So I kind of jumping up again on what Colin says. There are a lot of stupid people operating in this information ecosystem right now. People who don't know how to read, people who don't know how to make a cogent logical argument, people who don't know how to cue in on social cues to hear if someone is sarcastic or is not, or it's just very strange that we have a lot of people here who are dealing out information or takes, and that is what happens with democratization of the internet. But now we just have a lot of stupid people just saying a lot of stupid shit or misinterpreting things, and it's fairly maddening, and it's very exhausting. And I guess this is just the rest of our lives now. So
yeah, how did this come up? Was it like a video interview or something like that?
I guess it was just like behind the scenes talk with just some influencers, over in Europe, and then he was just like, yeah, no one cares about Banjo-Kazooie, and it's like, no, it wasn't meant to be taken that way,
Yeah, if he was just being sarcastic, then it's like,
yeah,
who cares? But
yeah, it reminds me, you'll appreciate this. I've talked about this before, but not in this context, I guess. Is I interviewed Kazunori at the head of Polyphony Digital. At an impromptu, it must have been 2013 or maybe 2014, something like that. I was still at E3, and I was just pulled aside because I guess he had like a cancellation or whatever. And so one of the PR people, her name was Farm. I don't know if she still works there. I don't deal with any of these people anymore. She was like, do you want to talk to Kazunori for a few minutes? I'm like, all right. So I sat down with him, and one of the questions I asked him was, what do you think of Drive Club? Because we all thought it was kind of weird that Evolution was making a more realistic sim style racer. I guess it was much more arcadey, I guess. But instead of doing something like MotorStorm or a Wipeout style game like Psygnosis did or Liverpool did for years that differentiates itself from Gran Turismo, they're doing something more realistic. And he said to me, I don't think about Drive Club, as part of his answer. And I remember the journalist in me with the headline, I was like, it's like Kazunori quote, colon quote, I don't think about Drive Club would have been a big story. And I'm like, he didn't mean it like that. Mm-hmm. In my mind, I'm like, I'm just not writing that story. It's like that easy.
Exactly.
It's that easy.
Yeah.
It's that easy.
It's like he didn't mean it like that. He definitely said it. And that was way
judgment.
Right.
You use judgment and context, and you were a normal person about it, as opposed to a fucking goblin, just picking up scraps of whatever. And it's like, oh, without context, just shit it out to their readers, Fuck's sake.
Yeah, that doesn't help anyone. Don't do that, guys. Just think for a second.
Yeah, sort it out, guys. Come on.
Just don't do that. It's exhausting. All right, my sort out relates to Logan here. This is Logan from Memory Card. I got to give a massive sort out to Capcom. What the hell is going on with Dino Crisis Resident Evil Director's Cut being locked behind PS Plus Premium? I've been able to buy literally every other classic game added to PSN, but these two. I've been so stoked to play Dino Crisis, but I'd have to upgrade my PS Plus for it. Sort it out, man. Yeah. The fact that you can buy like everything else and just not these two is extremely weird. Very strange. And it's not like Nintendo, which I get extremely frustrated at as well, where you have to sub to play any of those games online, a lot of their back catalog, because I wish you could buy those as well. But it's just like, why these two particular games? Colin, do you think this is a Sony thing or a Capcom thing?
Maybe both. I mean, I don't know why Capcom would just ask to do this. So it must be a thing where maybe these are like, they're working off of the Dino Crisis came as the PS1 classic, right, on PS3 and Vita.
I think, yeah.
Director's Cut definitely was. maybe there's just something where it exists and there's just a little bit of, that's the thing is like, I don't understand how little amount of money, when I say little amounts of money, I'm like, you have to imagine that licensing a game like Dino Crisis to PlayStation Plus Premium is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, how much are you really going to pay for that? You know? So what is really the point of doing it that way? So I don't think it's Sony. I think it's a combination of both of them just being like, well, maybe we can do something together. How do we don't really want to do it. Oh, how can we coerce you? Well, yeah. It's frustrating though, because it's inconsistent with the way what I think is a pretty high quality execution and also a nice cadence of these games coming. So it is strange, but I also, when the new tiers were announced some time ago, it was a while ago now, a long time ago, it was suggested that there would be games locked to that tier, and it hasn't really happened. So if anything, they've not really followed through as much as they thought, or as I thought that maybe they would. So it's disappointing, but I wasn't probably going to play it anyway, to be honest.
All right. This is from Arian Yeet. Aloha Summoners. I have a sorted out for Sony. Where has the resume activity feature gone? Previously, you could resume a game simply by pressing square in the activity cards for each game. This was an awesome feature that skipped the splash screens when starting a game and allowed you to jump straight into your last save. Is the disappearance of resume activity a bug similar to the technical error in quotations that showed ads and other nonsense in the PS5 dashboard? Was this intentional? Did any of you resume or use resume activity? Let's hope this isn't rip in peace for resume activity. What's going on here, Colin? With this?
I don't know. I have no idea. I haven't heard anything of this, but I must admit, I never really used this feature. You would use it once in a while, but I just start the game up and go from the continuous.
That's
screen,
what I do too.
So not that I'm saying you're right or wrong for doing that, but I wouldn't have even noticed that this was gone. It would actually dawn on me every once in a while. I'm like, oh yeah, you can do this, and it does work, and it's nice. But I don't know what's happening to it. I would imagine it's a bug of some sort, maybe with the new firmware. If it really has disappeared for everyone for every game, that is strange. I haven't seen anything about that being written anywhere. So I wouldn't imagine it's gone for forever, but we'll see. Is this something you guys use? I really don't.
No,
use this feature.
I never use this. I like to hard shut down all my games and
me too.
Boot them up again. That's what I do.
No, I do the same thing. I send my saves to the cloud when I'm done, and sometimes if I'm even playing for a while, like if I'm really playing for a few hours, I'll just shut the game off arbitrarily to upload the save and then start it again.
Yeah,
because I get nervous. I get paranoid.
But yeah, it's kind of weird that they have this feature and just kind of like don't support it anymore. That's strange, but I don't know. We'll see. Sony's weird. All right, boys, it's time for Keep It Up. On this segment, we just talk about something we're pleased with in the game industry, the exact opposite of sorted out. Colin, let's start with you again. Anything you're pleased with right now in gaming?
Not really, but
okay.
I wanna say more. This isn't really a keep it up, but I guess it is kind of a keep it up, but let's see how it goes. I'm just excited for to see how Call of Duty does with Game Pass, and
interesting.
Microsoft's keeping it up down this path, I suppose. But I'm just so intrigued. Again, I've been noting that I've been seeing Call of Duty commercials with no branding. Like no commercial I've seen on TV for Call of Duty says anything about Game Pass or even a console that it's coming to at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Huh. Like it's just like, Call of Duty coming whatever date. So keep it up, I guess, to this trend of embracing this future of subscriptions, and we'll see how it goes. But they're going to have to keep it up because this is what they've bought into at this point. But I don't have a more traditional keep it up because I don't feel like things are good, but I don't feel like anything's really sticking out to me right now.
That's kind of how I feel also. I don't feel like anything exceptional has happened where I'm like, oh, yes, right now. Except for Metaphor, but I did that last week. So for now, I'm good. Gene, what about you, man? Anything you're pleased with right now?
Keep it up to Bloober Team. I know that I went a little bit on Silent Hill 2, but they just released today, a couple of hours ago, a patch update for Silent Hill 2. Some technical issues, and they're addressing traversal stutters. So I'm very, very happy to hear that. And improve performance and optimization for Steam Deck. Did they include cloud saves? because for some reason the Steam version of Silent Hill 2 does not support cloud saves.
Oh, what?
That's
so weird.
Fucking annoying for a AAA game, for fuck's sake. So sort it out, Bluebird team, for not including that. That's really weird. I don't see it up here, but it should be added support. I don't know, but yeah. Anyways, keep it up. At the very least, they're paying attention. So if it's not there, then it'll be there soon. So I'm very glad to see Bluebird team still hammering away at Silent Hill 2. I thought I was a little worried because they were really quiet. I thought they were just too busy patting themselves on the back. Look at this, we made a good game. Finally, people like us. No, I'm glad that I'm glad that they're still working hard. So shout out to Bluebird team. You're on a lot of people's good sides right now. So keep it up.
Yeah, keep it up, Bluebird team. When you said you admitted that your last games were not good.
Yeah. Shout out to a little self-awareness there.
Yeah, there you go.
And as Colin said, they made Basement Crawl, which is the worst PS4 game ever.
Yep.
I think it is. Again, like skepticism was always warranted.
Yeah, that's what bothered me. It was like, are you guys sorry about this now? I'm like, are you crazy? Like these guys, I did the math. I talked about it on Sacred. Their average Metacritic score is not good. It's like in the 60s or something. So
yeah, but everyone just wants to meme. Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't familiar with your game, or blah blah blah. Apology for everything's just a fucking meme now. As opposed to an actual serious discussion about the evolution of these creatives.
Yeah, like one good game isn't like I'm extremely confident in you now for all your progress going forward.
Yeah,
I'm just happy you made a good game, and I'm a little more confident, but I'm still not giving you the keys of the kingdom.
Yeah,
you still got work to do, buddy.
Yeah.
All right, let's hear from the audience. This is from Troy Wagaman. Hey, SS crew, the good ones. I'd like to issue a keep it up to Boss Team Studios. I pre-ordered the collector's edition of their Retro Realms collection with Halloween and Ash vs. the Evil Dead. While it was supposed to arrive this past week, it was delayed by 2 weeks. Instead of making those who pre-ordered wait to play, they sent us codes for the digital version as well. Best of both worlds, as now I can keep the game sealed and play on time. That's pretty
classy.
Nice of them.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
Yeah, it's a classy move.
Yeah, I like it. All right, and this is from M. Carbra. I want to give a keep it up to Power Picks. These are the guys who make trophy guides for basically every big video game release these days. As a big trophy hunter, I have especially found the walkthroughs of their website excellently written and easy to follow. I'm immensely impressed with how they are able to show the locations of collectibles that seem impossible to find and have them ready on day one. The fact that they can make video guides for God of War Ragnarok to record complete areas without any cuts is equally impressive, especially considering how dog shit those maps are. Has Colin ever considered reaching out to them for Sacred Symbols Plus episode?
Yeah, so back at IGN, I spoke to someone because because on Podcast Beyond, I had said something like, it was so impressive how one person had the Power Picks account and how crazy it was. And I think someone had reached out at the time being like, actually, it's many people. Now that's much more obvious, but it wasn't really obvious. And I was like, wow, this is like a weird entity sharing an account. Now it's become this much more robust website. And yeah, they have video content, but what I really like about their content is just the written stuff. The walkthroughs are really nice. So there are just these iconic, and some of these walkthroughs aren't on Power Picks, but there are actually just these iconic walkthroughs for some games that live on these various sites, whether it's Power Picks, PSN profiles, and so on and so forth, where they are the perfect flow chart through a game to get everything. Persona 4 has some of these going for them. All the big games have a lot of these really nice walkthroughs where it's like fun. And it's not ruining the game for you. It's simply like, to get these trophies, just follow this walkthrough. And it's like, item 1, collectible 3, whatever, document 5, and you just find them in order. And it's so good. And for people like me and for people like M. Carbra and Carbra here, it's just good shit. And it's necessary work. It really is. It's really valuable work. It reminds me of my time in journalism. Just, I got started, as people know, as a strategy guide writer. And that was like amongst the most valuable thing you could be doing at IGN. Like, if you wrote good strategy guides, which I did, you were bringing such real value, because people were like, my Fallout 3 guide, when I wrote the Fallout 3 guide in 2008, was IGN's biggest piece that year, period.
Wow.
And it's really, really important work because people need the help. And so I love that there's people, and I knowing the craft like I do, because I did it for so long, I just appreciate how much work goes into doing it well. And I'm really impressed by it. I don't like video content for guides at all, unless it's something like very specific, like showing you something. But I'd rather you say like, this is where the item is, than being like, follow this video and then use the timestamps and click on item 3 to find out where your item is. It's like, just tell me where it is, or show me a picture and a map or whatever. So yeah, shout out to all of those. I mean, NeoSeeker is another good, more modern website. It's been around for a long time, but that has really good guides. PSN Profiles has really good guides. A lot of legacy guides are on pstrophies.org, which is like a less important site now, but was, along with xboxachievements.com or whatever that website was. Huge resources. And a lot of this stuff is timestamped too. So it's so cool. Like you're using like the best possible guide for a game and it's from 2009 or whatever. It's good shit. So it would be fun to talk to them. I don't even really know. I don't understand how they operate. I have had other trophy guide people come on the show, but never them. No.
Never them. I have a question. So like when you were writing, let's say your Fallout 3 guide, I assume you had the game in advance, right?
Yes.
Do it? Were you able to like reach out to Bethesda and ask them questions if you couldn't figure something out?
Sometimes we would get documentation from them if it was early enough, but often we would just get the strategy guide, like the official strategy guide.
Okay.
And so it's funny when you're I've said this before, I never did it. I was not in a position to do it. It was kind of the game was kind of over by the time I got there, but there were people at IGN that would regularly ghostwrite those guides, and you would basically be put up in a hotel for like a few days and be given like a lump sum of money and a bunch of documentation in the game. And my friend Jeremy, who founded Podcast Beyond and is now the VP, or was the VP of Psionics, he works somewhere else now, massively successful. He used to do that on the side, and his wife would take the pictures of you used to have to actually take pictures early on, like in the PS1 era, of the screen.
Yeah.
And like and crop them and all of that kind of stuff. And they would work as a team. And I loved that those were available, but didn't feel so bad. So I say that because we didn't feel so bad using them as foundations of like what was in a game, because it's like half the time that stuff was written by someone around us, and they were always getting early access to like all the documentation, so they knew where things were. In fact, every blue moon you would find where an item like at the very last minute was moved in a game and was wrong in the physical strategy guide. So what we would do was, like with Fallout 3, we had the guide, and I never really went into the guide itself. What we would often do, and there's actually pictures of me because we had like huge shelves of all the guides, is we would just use the table of contents and say like, these are all the quests, and we would like scratch them off as we went. If we were missing something, then we would like investigate further. I think in a lot of situations, certainly from all of the guides I've written, not all of them at IGN, but certainly the ones when I was a kid, like a lot of them are predicated on previous experience or guides or things that are there, and you're trying to make it better and better and try to make it more concise or change the strategy and tweak it just so and all of that. But there's really just a certain way to do certain things. I remember that was really useful with the Pokedex too. When we would make our own Pokedex, we would double check it against the physical guide. And if there was a discrepancy, then we would go into the game and look or whatever. So yeah, it ended up being those Brady and Prima guides and Versus and some of the other companies that did them were like some of the most valuable assets we had simply for their tables of contents. So we knew what we were looking for.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because I think about like just starting a guide with no information like that and just having to write it as you go. It seems very daunting in a lot of ways.
I mean, often that was the case. But you're asking about Fallout 3 in particular. It's like, no, we definitely had help there.
Yeah, I mean, because that game is insanely massive with the amount of stuff you can do in it.
Right, but I wrote a lot of things blind too, and you go, and often maybe you'd even play the game again, and there was like different schools of thought to writing guides. Like there were people I wrote with where they would beat the whole game by, as long as it was reasonable, like they would just beat the game. And then they would like play through it and write from there. I was the kind of person that would write my first time through and I would pause like constantly and just keep writing. And it breaks you after a while, dude. But I think the Fallout 3 guide was insane. Like it was literally something like 600,000 words or something. And it took me 4 months or whatever to finish it. and it was worth the time. Like IGN let me spend all this time like really maturing this guide. And what's unfortunate about that is that all my work has been ingested into the wikis thing, and was a long time ago at IGN. So like my name's not on any of this stuff anymore. And a lot of this stuff's been rewritten by like, other people. But every once in a while I'll go and look for like a more obscure guide I wrote, and it's in the wiki, and you could tell that I wrote this, you know. So it's kind of sucks. A lot of my work's just gone.
Yeah, that does suck. It's whack. It'd be cool if they archived it at least on there some way.
Yeah, they just didn't do that. I don't know why, but yeah, they didn't do that.
They probably just didn't think much about a lot of that stuff then. But very interesting. Very interesting. Do you think PowerPix probably gets information like that then from developers as well?
I don't know. It's clear that they have early access to the games, and which I think is interesting too, because this hasn't been a problem in a long time, but certainly a long time ago, there was some competing interest in making sure that if you got early access to a game, a publisher would often say like, this is not to be used by the guides team, because they don't want to undercut their physical guide in which they are licensed and get a little bit of money from. So that competing interest doesn't really exist anymore. So now I would imagine publishers are probably more willing to share like documentation and like where items are, because a lot of that stuff exists internally. I mean, if you are making a Zelda game or whatever, the documents about where everything is like an internal thing where people are keeping track of it, and that stuff exists. So but I think those guys are just fucking hardcore.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of them. That's the other thing that was so impressive to me is, but yeah, I am interested in what publishers get out of letting people work on their games like that early. I've always wondered that. Game Help, I guess they probably have some sort of theory of the case that it's all good. Making the game playable and accessible is good for people that are looking for help, so they don't get stuck.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. All right, Colin, you've been playing Castlevania Order of Ecclesia, or Ecclesia? I don't remember how they say it in the game.
Yeah, it's Ecclesia.
Ecclesia, that's right. But this is the final DS game that we had. This came out in the Dominus Collection pretty recently. I actually have played about 6 hours of this game pretty recently myself, so I'm somewhat familiar with it. First of all, I'm curious, have you played the other two before this?
No, so this is part of what's funny. I've played all of them in my past, but what's funny is that if you look at if you turn on this new collection, the Dominus Collection or whatever, which is where I'm playing them from, they're presented out of order. And so Ecclesia is at the top of the list. And I just clicked. So I was like, okay. And I just started playing it. And it wasn't until I was like a few hours in, I was like, wait a minute. Like, part of what set me off, I was like, this game looks too good. I don't remember it looking like, and it does look great, but it's like, this seems like a later game. And it ended up being that case. So Dawn of Sorrow is the first of the DS games. And I've since gone back and started playing that. When I realized Order of Ecclesia was presented out of order, I was like, oh, all right, I guess I'll just keep going. It doesn't really matter.
Right.
It matters only from a gameplay perspective, in that you're getting like more and more evolved games if you play them in order, but they're interconnected somehow. I mean, on the timeline, but it doesn't really matter. You play them all as individual packages. But it's funny that I didn't know, like, I don't know the GB. I have a list up now, but the GBA and DS ones, I played all of them. I owned all of them. But other than Circle of the Moon being the first one, I really couldn't rattle off like the order of all of them. So when I got to order, because it's, for people that are curious, it's Circle of the Moon, Harmony of Dissonance, and then Aria of Sorrow, and then Dawn of Sorrow, Portrait of Ruin, and Order of Ecclesia. But I couldn't tell you that. I still couldn't tell you that, even after just reading them.
Yeah,
so
I got you.
Oh, that's funny. That's great. These are not the icon. I mean, these are wonderful Castlevania games, and I'll get into it, but they're not the iconic Castlevania games to me, especially the DS ones. I was in college by this point, and I bought them all as they came out and played them. I might have even written the strategy guide for a couple of them at IGN, but I don't remember anything really about them as individual games. I know that I just liked them as Metroidvania.
Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah.
So I don't know why they're presented like that on the screen. It's just weird.
That is weird. Yeah, that's weird.
And I just made an assumption based on that. I don't know. It could be based on the timeline or something. But so yeah, Order of Ecclesia is good. I think it's really hard.
Yes,
actually.
It is. It's really hard.
And I don't remember it being that hard, to be honest, but it is. And I felt chronically underleveled in the game to the point where I just started using the rewind feature like on the last two bosses where I'm like, I'm not doing this. I started using the save state feature just to put myself at the beginning of boss fights because the game is so old school that it dumps you back to the menu. Then you have to restart everything. Then you have to go from the save room back. So I'm like, I'm not doing that. And I was dying a bunch on these bosses. But yeah, I don't remember it being so brutally difficult. It's got the difficulty of an old Castlevania game in the trappings of a Metroidvania Castlevania game, which is weird because what I think is so fun about the Metroidvania games is that they're manageable. They're difficult, but it's really about progression. And if you want to make, just like any role-playing game, if you want to make it easier, you kind of just grind a little bit. Although I was noticing that, and I don't know how each different game on it and its stats react on this level, but leveling up, I think only in is like for HP and magic. I don't even think you get statistical boost from it. So, but you can make the game easier by, grinding money rather for weapons and armor. And in Ecclesia, you're using some enemy skills and all the rest. What I'm realizing about some of these games, and this is what I do remember about these games, is there was a point in time where they felt like they started to need to reinvent the wheel. Because I think they were looking at it, especially scattered from Circle of the Moon in 2001 and Ecclesia's 2008. And I was saying to Micah that Ecclesia is really the last real Castlevania game, which is kind of strange when you think about it. We've had some Castlevania games since then, but this is the last Castlevania game I acknowledge as being like real Castlevania. That's not alternate timeline Castlevania. And they started to feel like they needed to reinvent the wheel in terms of combat. Not in terms of the way you interface with beating enemies necessarily, but being like, oh, it's a little boring to have like a whip and maybe you have some equipment and some sub weapons. But what if you use like enemy skills? And then like, what if you had 3 types of enemy skills? And then what if you could like swap them between all these different setups that you have and all the rest? And I'm like, the more you do this, the more I don't like this stuff. I wish you just let me play. There's something, because the games don't demand anything out of you time-wise. I mean, you can 100% Order of Ecclesia in under 10 hours easily. You could almost Maddenize and annualize these games. And for a while that they did do that. And you don't really need to reinvent the combat because it never really gets old. You'd have 8 or 10 hours with the game, you put it down, then the next year, a new map, new story, new whoever come in. And so Order of Ecclesia is the one thing I'll say about it, other than that it's really hard. There are a couple of things that are neat about it, but that I don't know that I like, but I don't know that I hate. And one of them is the map structure, about how like there's, instead of one major map or maybe a couple of maps or an inverted castle or something, there's just a bunch of locations. This is where I think there is some unity between the old school difficulty and the old school Castlevania style difficulty of really difficult gameplay with the progression system, where you are really going stage to stage. You can backtrack and rediscover things and find things that you didn't see. And maybe there's some parts of these different maps that you encounter that you couldn't do something on the first time because you didn't have the appropriate weapons, but really you're progressing forward. And for that reason, it feels somewhat old. And I don't mind that. It's just an observation. The one thing, I guess one more thing I will say is the game is fucking beautiful. And
yeah, good music too.
The pixels are so chunky because it's a DS game. So when you're playing it I'm playing on my big OLED in my living room, and it's like, this reads so well. There is such a major difference in pixel art quality and the artistry behind it between so many different games. And this is of a supreme quality. Yeah. Like S rank quality pixel
Beautiful
art.
Game.
And just the scrolling of different backgrounds and enemy animations. I love it. I was showing Micah some of the fun Easter egg style things too. And one of the enemies in Ecclesia is the falconer, where you like, if you kill his bird, he like gets on his knees and like gets upset. And like basically just kill him easily and stuff like that. It's a very thoughtful game and very creepy, atmospheric, but yeah, hard. And I don't remember playing this game the first time through. I have it. I have all 6 of them. But I imagine it probably drove me insane because it is one of those games where it's like, damn, this is really fucking tough, dude. Also, some cool optional areas. You can find an exit so you end up in Dracula's castle, obviously, which is the biggest map, but you can find a secret exit out of it where you can find more parts of the world map, which is pretty cool. So And I appreciate that they add things in to give it a little texture. When you compare that Ecclesia to Circle of the Moon, they really did come a long way back towards, I think, when Symphony of the Night was trying to do. And I think even with a little bit more panache, like they have side quests. Like you find the villagers, bring them back to your village. Each of them does something for you. You can do things for them. And then they give you more things that are available, whether it's items or weapons or dishes and apothecary stuff and so on. So yeah, Order of Ecclesia is good, but it's fun. I just love that I accidentally started playing it before it was supposed to. I was just, and I don't know why it's presented like that. So since then I've started, and I'm more than halfway through, probably 2/3 of the way through Dawn of Sorrow now. It is more fun to, I think, spread these games out, though. I was looking at my trophies for the GBA collection, which came out in 2021, and I played Circle of the Moon in 21, Dissonance in 2022, and Lament of Innocence Aria of Sorrow in 2023. So spreading them out more like that, I think, makes a little more sense.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about you when I was playing it, Brad, because I was like, we should do a deep dive into some of these games.
Yeah.
Maybe one for I mean, it would be cool to just do a bunch of Castlevania episodes, but for the Metroidvania style stuff, like one for Symphony of the Night, one for the GBA games, one for the DS games, I think would be pretty cool in the future.
Yeah.
So something to consider.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, Colin, I agree with the game is very tough, and I think a lot of it is just because I think some of the enemies, particularly the bosses, just have way too much health. Like way too much. It like takes way too long to kill some of them. I think they need some balancing work on some of that stuff. But I'm in Dracula's castle right now. I like the idea of finding the villagers. You need to find them all to get to Dracula's castle, though, I saw. Because
to get the real ending, like the game will end.
Yeah,
very Symphony of the Night like, and because there are people that beat Symphony of the Night not knowing.
Yeah,
that
exactly. Yeah,
there's a whole and it makes some sense to them just because it's you never really saw a Castlevania game like that, so you already got 5, 6, 7 hours. You're like, yeah, that seems about right.
Mm-hmm.
So totally. If you don't find all the villagers, and some of the villagers I couldn't find 2 of them, and I had to look it up. I had to
use a guide to find a couple of them. Because I couldn't find them because it was behind like a random wall. I'm like, I would never have found that.
Yeah, I would have never found that either. So, and then the game will continue as long as you do that. So
yeah. Gene, you have any experience with these Castlevania games on DS, particularly Order of Ecclesia?
I do not. Okay. So I'm really excited to check out its collection. Yeah. That
someday.
I don't have any experience with these. It was really Symphony of the Night, and I'm still making my way through the advanced collection too.
Nice, yeah, great games, yeah, awesome.
Yeah. But DS was not a system. I know DS is like one of the best selling video game systems of all time. I've never owned a DS ever.
Oh, really?
I've only ever had a 3DS.
Man,
but I've never had a DS. I've had girlfriends who had a DS. I've had a sister who had a DS, and that was when I was able to mess around with it. But
the DS was so sick.
I know.
So good. Man, the DS Lite when that came out too. Wow. What a piece of tech. All right, this is from Badly Brave. Hey, Summoners, with Order of Ecclesia re-release, I've seen the game receiving more divisive takes on re-release, with some still considering it among the best in the series, and some feeling like its combat strays too far and the difficulty feels unfair at times. Personally, I feel like it's right behind Symphony of the Night in terms of Igavanias, but what say 3 of you boys also do a Castlevania tier list, you cowards. Whoa.
We should do a Castlevania.
Yeah, we can do that. We'll have to probably think of another game or something else to do with it, but yes, we could absolutely do that. I'll have to refresh on a couple of them. But me and Colin fall more on the side of I think the game's a little too difficult. A little overtuned in my opinion, and some of the combat sounds like for you strays a little too far. It's a little too crazy, maybe.
Yeah, there's something simple about the base weapon, and I don't mind the Symphony of the Night style. Like the introduction of equipment to Castlevania, I think was cool. It was positive. A sword and a cape and a fucking piece of armor and an accessory. That's all good. But I think they just start adding too much. It's like now you kill enemies. Now you have to kind of farm them for their skills. And now you have to equip the different skills and different combinations and use them in unity with each other. I'm like, you don't need, this isn't necessary. With Castlevania, in my opinion. It's cool that they got into that sort of thing. I don't think it ruins the game because you end up getting to the same situation. In Ecclesia, it's like, okay, so now I'm using the rapier style weapon because it's a sword and I'm just using that. And it doesn't matter that I got it from an enemy or it could be a piece of equipment. Nothing's changing. It's kind of just mixing around things for no reason, in my opinion. So, as far as like a tier, it would be fun to do a huge Castlevania tier list, but as far as like ordering the Igavanias, it's difficult because, again, Symphony of the Night is differentiated from all of them, obviously, and is the best one, but they all kind of blur together. That's why I want to do the show or the shows with you at some point, is to just really play them in sequence and just consider them in the moment, as opposed, because they really do wash out of you pretty quickly. I mean,
yeah, they do.
And the only thing that if you showed me screenshots or video of the 6 of them playing, I probably could put them in order. I could certainly show you the GBA ones from the DS ones. I mean, that would be obvious, but they just look more primitive the more time you go backwards. It's nothing else about them that really differentiates for me.
Mm-hmm. All right, it's from Mitchell Sims. Wow. So, as far as Castlevania Order of Ecclesia goes, I don't think I've rage quit more at a game than it. Actually, to the point I literally gave my DS to my brother and never played it again. This game is truly dreadful. A stain on the Castlevania name and an assault on my livelihood and overall health. So sort it out to Colin if he said anything good about this game. Have a great day. Thanks.
It's toughy.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
It's only frustrating because a game this hard that was presented like old Castlevania would feel right. It just feels out of place being so hard.
Sure.
And not really being able to cycle your way at it. I mean, you can get some pretty sick equipment. If you are willing to grind money, you can buy super potions for, I think, 30,000 gold, which is an extraordinary amount of gold. That might be more gold than you spend in the entire game. But if you can grind them out and buy up to 9 of them, that will refill your health over and over again. So, I mean, you could grind, and there are places to grind money and stuff if you have the patience. So there's ways to break it. It's not the end of all things, but it is tough, man. Like, it definitely is. I don't even die usually on boss fights. Even the first time I fight a lot of these bosses. Symphony of the Night's not a hard game.
No.
I'm too busy being distracted by how pretty it is for it to be too hard either. They knew what you were going to be distracted by.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. Gene. Metaphor. ReFantazio. It's here, man. God. You've been playing. I've been playing. I'm about 28 hours into the game right now. So I'm pretty deep.
What day are you? That's the real marker of length. Like, what month are you then?
I honestly don't remember what month I'm now. I don't look at the date that much unless there's like a date you have to do something for.
What part of the story are you at then?
I can't tell you. I'm guaranteed further than you though.
Okay.
I saw your screenshot. I'm much further than you.
Okay. I am a few days further than that.
Okay.
But
I'm still probably farther than that.
Well, I think I'm actually deep into August now. But I do feel like that you might be still farther than me because, unfortunately, it's been spoiled to me that the story gets a crazy twist later or whatever like that, and I don't think I've really hit anything that remarks that. But it's not like I need it because the twist was already at the beginning of the story, which is incredible. I don't know how to sing this game's praises enough. It is a game that reminds me of when I first started playing the Xenoblade Chronicles trilogy, where I was like, "Oh my god, JRPGs! This is it! I love JRPGs. This is exactly what JRPGs are about." When I played Dragon Quest XI, I was like, "This is JRPGs, baby!" And now I'm playing Metaphor, and I'm getting the exact same feeling. The music, the world, the characters. We talk about how original Horizon is. Metaphor is another a really original game. The idea that the current reality that we live in is might be idealized. Just the other day I fought a guy who was like, old people deserve to retire. You young people are always making us old people work, and old people should just be able to just rest, and there should be a fund or something to take care of old people in the twilight of our lives. And I'm just about to fight a guy who's really into Social Security. This is awesome, and into good retirement. What a fascinating and interesting fantasy world. One of my favorite things Colin has said recently is when he talked about how he's not that interested in Dragon Age Veilguard, where he was like, "Oh, there's a wizard and dragons, and you have to watch out for the dragons, and then the dragons are coming back, and then you have to find the wizard and the sorceress,
Put on your
dwarves." There's dwarves and elves and people and everything like that, and it's like, yeah, you know what? I like, especially after Metaphor, fucking basic ass Dungeons and Dragons shit is not gonna cut it. I need pure racism in my
sure.
game, you know,
Yeah.
pure
Unfiltered.
institutionalized racism. They need to be charging me way more for who I am, and also just the fact that it's just interwoven so deeply into the story and its themes, and just the structure of the story too. The pacing itself is like a TV show. It's like I'm watching anime, which I think a lot of people like Persona for, right? Persona is very episodic, and so is this game too. But it changes. You know, the notion that this is just fantasy Persona is not quite accurate to me, though, because this structurally is just a lot more interesting than Persona. Persona will lock you into like one dungeon per quote unquote arc, right? Narrative arc. Whereas here in Metaphor, you are going through a variety of locations and dungeons and combat scenarios that just really keeps things really interesting and fresh. There's always new characters and new towns that are being introduced. If anything, it reminds me of Persona 5 Strikers. In Persona 5 Strikers, which is the Musou Dynasty Warriors Persona game, they actually just go around to like way different cities each time, as opposed to just staying in the one area. And so Metaphor is a real travel log of this new land, and it's just really interesting to get to know its people and the different races. I think a huge part of the reason why I like this game so much, though, is the combat. Because it's not just Earthbound is one of my favorite RPGs of all time, right? And I've always wondered why more RPGs don't adopt what Earthbound did, whereas if you're really strong and finding a weaker enemy is just going to be a waste of time, then why don't you just blow right through it? And Earthbound did that, where if you're over leveled and an enemy just touches you, and then you just get the experience points. Now in Metaphor, you can do that. You can be over leveled, and there is a real time combat system. And I'm sure you've talked about that before. But I love this real time combat system. I love games that give me that incentivize me being over leveled. It makes me excited to do more combat. It makes me excited to do more leveling, so I can actually just blow through some of these areas. If the combat feels good, there's a roll that makes it feel a little bit tactile. What's fun is when you fight a Guptaros, one of those big minotaurs or whatever, and they don't go down in the real time combat section, even at a high level. But what's fun is that when you are able to stun them, and then the game will freeze into like a stun, and you can go into the turn-based combat by pressing Y or triangle. You can actually just cancel that out, and you can just dodge roll out of it, and you can just keep hitting that person in real time over and over again until they die. And that flexibility just keeps the combat scenarios just so much more interesting and engaging than I've ever found in Persona. My biggest issue with Persona, even from when I first played Persona 4, which is my first Persona game, to be clear, and to give context to my own attachment to the SMT Persona series. I don't really have one. I never played the SMT series, and I only played Persona 4. And I never finished Persona 5, famously. I've been playing that game for 8 years. And a large part of that is because Metaphor's combat system is just so engaging. It just keeps me interested. The real-time combat and the Dynasty Wars systems keeps it fresh and keeps it fun, and it makes me really, a lot of people know I don't really do a lot of side quests. I've been doing every side quest in Metaphor, every single one,
same,
every single opportunity I can. It's fun. The one thing that's Persona like is the calendar system. That's very strong. One thing that's interesting about Persona and Metaphor is that they always make sure that they give you space to do in between time. One thing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth didn't do really is make it feel clear, like, oh, this is a good time in the game to just kind of fuck off and just explore side content or whatever like that. Whereas in Metaphor and Persona, they write that into the story. So right now I am deeply into an in between time where nothing's really going on and we're just kind of waiting for the next thing to happen. So if you don't like that about Persona and Metaphor, then that's still here, because I can see that turning people off, where it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to wait around and I have to work on my social links, which I'm really enjoying now, because again, they've made the relationship part a lot less stressful. So you don't have to worry about, always choosing the right things, and you don't have to worry about, getting the romance wrong or whatever like that. It just make sure that you engage with that person and get to know them. And each of these stories are really, really fascinating. My favorite so far is Brigida, the tall merchant who sells igniters. Her story is very sad and interesting, and very complex. And each of these stories have really, really compelling narrative arcs. It does remind me of what Colin said earlier about Horizon, in that he doesn't find the minute tribal things as interesting. I'm also I find that here in Metaphor and Persona, where the smaller trivialities, problems of each of the characters are really, really interesting, and I'm paying attention to them really much. But sometimes I do feel like, okay, well, I really want to get to know what's going on in the main story, because the main story is so fascinating. This whole story about establishing a democracy, basically, or democratic government. All of that is so fascinating. I just want to see more of that. So a small part of me is like, cool. Let me go back and talk to the little girl again, and then make sure she's okay, and she grows up to be emotionally intelligent and smart, and I don't ruin her childhood because she's having a tragic childhood. But sometimes I just don't want to go back and fucking read books to a little girl. I just want to find out what's happening in democracy dying in darkness.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, but you don't really get you can choose which ones to choose, but again, the overarching or the overarching narrative is just so much more compelling that I sometimes do feel like I'm being sidetracked by these really compelling side quests, but I do want to get the main story going. So,
yeah, I was extremely invested in some of these characters' quests.
Yes,
like I won't spoil them, but like Heismaze, I was really into, and all that kind of stuff.
Dude, Heisme is a fucking sick character, man.
Yeah, he's awesome.
I saw one comment. They call him the anti-Sephiroth, where he's like edgy and like the most virtuous and like honorable way. Yeah,
so sick.
Yeah,
he's great. I have some nitpicks, I guess, at the game. I don't know if they're nitpicks, but I have some complaints in the sense that it the dungeons, particularly like the layout of them, are very boring often. They're very similar. They all feel very similar.
Very 90 degrees angles, right? Yeah. They're just kind of constructed that way.
It reminded me, Gene, of playing Dark Cloud 1 and going through dungeons and that. I was like, oh, this is like Dark Cloud 1, like the whole thing. These kind of things. And I think there's honestly just way too many loading screens in between places. Like zones, they feel very like small, a lot of them. Like you're in this huge city and there's like a bunch of zones, but there's like a lot and they feel kind of small, the areas. I just wish now that we're on, like, I know this is a PS4 game as well and stuff like that. It's on last gen, so it is what it is. But I just kind of wish it felt like higher budget in that sense, where everything felt more connected, I guess.
More connection, yeah. Especially with Grand Trad, the first town, there's got to be a way to construct it.
It's like not a deal breaker or anything like that by any means, but I just wish, I was like, oh man, I wish you guys made this feel a little more grand. And
they are bigger than Persona 5 ever was, but
exactly. There's still like small areas like Persona, but they're a little bigger, which is great. And I just kind of wish that stuff. And
I'm with you there.
I think the art style is incredible, obviously. Like the art direction is so good, but some of the graphical stuff I wish is just upped a little more.
Sure,
felt a little more high budget, but it is a last gen game, so it is what it is.
There is one moment in the story, and I'm sure you passed this, where someone makes a big show of something, and it's supposed to be impressive and incredible, and then you see the texture, and you're like, oh, fuck, that looks like absolute. That looks like that looks like a huge piece of shit right there, And I'm never one to complain about graphics, and I'm so I love the style and everything like that. But yeah, it's hard not to notice when you see, especially like certain textures that are meant to be blown up or huge, and you're like, that looks like shit. It's okay. Yeah, but you're gonna notice that it looks like shit. So
these are kind of like minor nitpicks, I guess. Like some of the dungeon layouts, I don't think are that exciting. Like even the main ones, I'm just like, whatever. Kind of hoping you would evolve more from like P5. Maybe they did a little bit. Like I needed a little more. I was hoping for them. They're still enjoyable. Just some of the side dungeons I think are kind of just whatever. The whole
the side dungeons are repeated textures textures, and there's so much travel time in between each of the dungeons. Right now I'm getting to the point where it's like there are like 3 or 4 campfires in between each dungeon. I'm like, holy fuck,
Yeah, some of them are pretty intense.
So it's getting pretty long. So right now, this could be game of the year, but I'm only saying that because I'm only like 20, 30 hours in. So
yeah, it just depends how it all wraps up and all comes together. But yeah, those are like my complaints, I guess, about the game, and that's like not that many because the gameplay, like you said, is fantastic. I love the whatever it's called, their job system in the game. Like I love all the different ones, unlocking all of them, all the classes and all that stuff, and I'm addicted to it. And I think it's really cool, Gene, because like
I love the combat.
You can play as you can like level, you can max out a class or whatever, a job, whatever you want to say it, and you can still play that job and get XP you can spend on other classes, so you can stay with whatever one you like. And I really appreciate that. It's like, so if you like playing, a mage, you max out mage, but you still like being the mage, you can still get it, and you get an item to spend the XP on other stuff. So it gives you a lot of flexibility and lets you play how you want to play while still progressing and making yourself feel stronger. And the characters are really great. I think the voice acting is really good as well. Really strong. Really great music also. It's the same guy that does all the Persona music, but it's just very different, obviously, because it's a fantasy setting and it's not like, your jazzy, whatever poppy soundtrack that you're used to with Persona games. So it's
Did you know that the language? Do you know what language is being used in the music?
No.
It sounds like Latin. It's not.
What is it?
It is Esperanto.
Esperanto, huh?
The made-up language made up by the United Nations that created in the 80s to become simple enough language for any culture, any background to learn.
That's funny.
And apparently you can learn Esperanto in like 2 weeks. It's that easy to learn. But, so
I have no idea what you're saying.
You have no but like even in the music it is living up to this ideal of like one nation, one like United Nations, like all races and all creeds and everything getting together as one. They even insert that into the music, which is just beautiful.
Yeah. Colin, I know you'll play this eventually. When do you think you're gonna hop in?
Soon, I think. I mean, I bought it. I actually pre-ordered it, but it was like 2 days before it came out or whatever, and just downloaded it when it was available to do so. But I don't know, maybe imminently. I feel like I have a few games open right now, and I don't like having too many things going at one time. But I also realize that I am going to have not too much time. I mean, it's the 21st when we're recording this. The Pro comes out on the 7th, right? So we have like, I don't know, 2.5 weeks or something like that until then. So
I think Dragon Quest is after that.
Yeah, Dragon Quest, right. So I think it might behoove me to just get it going this week, which I may do, because Castlevania is easy to play on the side. I'm done with Until Dawn, and I'm waiting for the Pro for Silent Hill. So yeah, maybe this week. But I know very little about it other than what you guys have said about it here, and just some odds and ends about it. So I'm kind of going in as blind as possible, which I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah,
so,
I think you'll really enjoy it.
Yeah, and I I also bought. It was on sale. I don't know why, but it was $41. So I just bought it because I was like, it probably won't be any cheaper than this for a while. But I bought Persona 3 Reload as well.
Oh, nice.
A few weeks ago. So, but that will probably be maybe more of a holiday game or something. I don't really know, but I'd like to get to that at some point too. So it is the fall. This is a season, specifically a month of October into November. Very, for me as a kid, very role playing game centric. I mean, cool. Especially on PS1, so many games came out in September, October, November that I was just enamored with. So this is a very, as a kid, so in my teen years, we moved to this different house, and I had a skylight in my room, and the skylight looked out to like a big maple tree, and the leaves would be there and all the rest. And there's something very nostalgic about this time of year, the falling leaves, the changing leaves, and then like a game like Tales of Destiny or Xenogears or ReFantazio Musashi or something like that.
Yes. JRPGs are a real Halloween game.
Yeah, definitely. Something about the shorter days, the colder weather. These games are very cozy in my opinion in a lot of ways. So yeah, it feels appropriate to play it, and I'm looking forward to it. I believe that it's great. I totally believe it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Heisman has my favorite quote by Heisman. This is not a spoiler, but he'll say, "We'll fight, but not in justice's name." Like that's so fucking hard, dude.
Yeah,
like,
he's sick. He's so sick. I love him. He's great. Let's see. Justin wrote in. Hey guys, is metaphor ReFantazio not the perfect way to portray woke ideologies within art? Why aren't other companies capable of portraying challenging political and sociological themes in a way as seamless and believable as this? P.S. Brad and Gene are the shining examples of Last Stand's evolution. Just insane talent, and, in case of Gene, extreme sex appeal.
Wow, kind of a backhanded insult to you, Brad.
I know.
Why is Brad not
ugly stick? It's okay. I'm fine with that. Justin, it's because this game has good writing. That's why. The writing's actually good. A lot of these games that just shove like Dustborn, shoving that whole thing down your neck is full of cringy writing and bad.
I can't believe that game's not ironic. Like that game's not some sort of piece of irony.
I don't know. Yeah. It's just like you can have the same message, but how you go about it is completely different.
It's not good writing to look at Twitter and see, people say a political slogan, and then you go to your game script and then you write that political slogan down. That's not good writing. That's not an effort to tell a story. You're just stapling it. It's just copy and pasting.
This game actually has something to say and it's thought out.
Yeah, think about it. Yeah. I don't know. Think about it a little bit more. Incorporate it into your story. Recently we joked about Assassin's Creed Valhalla writing in the COVID pandemic, right? But even then, at least they found some kind of right way to write it in, and they cooked up some bullshit around it, but it was in there. Make an effort to write about it, and that's what metaphor does. It doesn't. It says everything that what people are talking about today, but they actually contextualize it within this world and within these characters and within these races and this caste system.
Yeah, it's not like some parody of what someone thinks about someone on like the left or right necessarily. It's actually well thought, and they spend a lot of time diving into this stuff, so you get a lot of context and all that. So they don't rush it, so it's really important and well
I am
done.
I am sympathetic to people who say, I just don't want stuff that are quote unquote forced in. And I think a lot of people don't really have the, as we talked about, some people are just really stupid and they don't really have the capacity to express these thoughts. But here's what I thought about in terms of what is forced in and what isn't, right? And what is pandering. Star Wars, Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, right? They had a very, very, very natural homosexual relationship within those three movies that we just saw within the past decade between Finn and Poe, right? Everyone thought that they were super gay for each other, and they had so many very gay scenes. But Disney was like, we're not gonna make one of the main characters gay and black. Are you kidding me? We have China to cater to.
Yeah,
we're gonna edit him out of the fucking poster. Right? We're not going to make him gay and black. We're not going to make him the fucking main character. Are you fucking kidding me? No. It's going to be this white woman. But they'll still put in a gay alien kiss scene or whatever within there, and then they'll promote it as like, oh my God, look at this gay relationship they have, or whatever. But it's just off to the side in the background, That's the difference between pandering and actually writing something in. What Disney did is pandering because you had a very, very natural gay relationship that was at the forefront, but then they purposely edited it out, and then they already made sure that they put in a little pandering side note to just so articles and some headlines in the West will do that. But then they'll also make sure that they edit, but it's not enough, so they can edit it out in the international markets. So there's a difference, but I think people are really struggling to understand that difference.
Yeah, it's good writing, guys. You need to have good writing. All right, this is from Jonathan Gold. All right, you weebs got me. I typically hate anime, turn-based fantasy, all of it. After trying the demo for Metaphor, I was hooked. I'm now 40 hours in. I've spent multiple nights addicted to it until 3 a.m. when I should be sleeping for work. If I could be left alone, I would binge the game for 13-hour sessions without issue. Do you guys think this new demo strategy should be copied by more devs? I know that it is how you got me to bust out my wallet, and this isn't the first time. I personally love demos where saves can transfer. Well, this isn't exactly brand new. Some companies have been doing this for a little bit, like Square Enix, for example. did this with Final Fantasy 16. They did this with Bravely Default. I believe 1 and 2, actually. 2 for sure. Maybe 1 and you carry over some stuff. But over the last year or two, it's been kind of something that's been popping up more and more, especially in RPGs. And yeah, I think it's an awesome idea. Why not? Especially if your game is so long. And I think this game did sell the concept and the idea of it. Or I'm sorry, this demo sold the game to a lot of people through all that stuff. So I think it's a great idea. I would love to see more people do this. I would love more demos in general. I think they're awesome.
Yeah, I think a lot of people got into Final Fantasy 16 because of that demo too, which was a really great demo.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. What do you think, Colin?
Yeah, I was looking something up because I was like, didn't Final Fantasy X have a playable demo that its save could be carried over from?
I'm not sure. Maybe
the bouncer or something like that. I was trying to find information on that, but I think this works beautifully for this genre, and it's a lot to ask someone to give you some meaty 10-hour demo when your game is 15 hours long. But when your game's 100 hours long, and you're capturing people through time and their investment already into it, I think it's actually somewhat brilliant. That's why I think you're seeing it more, because I think it's working. And so for these companies, like for a company like Atlas / Sega, for a company like Square Enix, obviously, and a few others, yeah, I think these kinds of things would be great just because give people a taste, and it's a big taste, and then you kind of capture them through wasted time in some sense, and they feel like I think there's some feeling that people have of like, you kind of got something for free and you don't mind paying for it,
right?
For the full thing. Yeah. So it's obviously working, and I know a lot of people were captured by metaphor this way. I'm not a demo person, really. I don't know.
I didn't play the demo either. I didn't want to do the demo. I'm like, let me just start the game fresh,
Well, you guys didn't need to be convinced. You were going to buy it anyways.
Exactly. Yeah, well, that's true too. Yeah,
you were in day one, no matter what.
We were pretty much locked in. So
yeah. All right, boys. Let's end the show with some questions from the audience. Every Saturday, I post a thread on our Patreon, patreon.com/SamMedia, and I put a thread in there calling for your submissions. We do that for all of our shows. Colin, what day do you guys do for Sacred Symbols? I've had multiple people ask me how to submit to Sacred Symbols.
We post on Wednesdays at 3, and then on Thursdays around noon, I delete the thread. So you have 20, 21 hours.
There you go. So if you want to post any of our shows, keep an eye out on our Patreon. We post all of our threads there. All right, this is from Fan. This question is for Colin. Hi, Colin. Would you ever consider playing Star Wars Jedi Survivor anytime soon?
No.
It's one of the major releases of 2023 and honestly, a good game. Sure, it had bugs at launch, though its story is definitely a step up from Jedi Fallen Order and more mature. Combat is expanded, and there are larger set pieces akin to Uncharted. Like Jedi Fallen Order, it's a 3D Metroidvania-style game. However, while Jedi Fallen Order got inspiration from early Zelda games such as Ocarina of Time and Wind Waker with its temples, Jedi Survivor is more expansive, akin to Breath of the Wild and open-world games. I get why you don't like Star Wars now, but this game is quite separate from Star Wars canon and it feels like its own standalone game. I love LSM's spoiler cast, and it sucks that this game never got a spoiler cast from anyone last year, while Insomniac Spider-Man games got so many spoiler casts last year, which is totally fine, but honestly, those games are quite trite and nothing compared to the Arkham series in my respectful opinion.
Oh, I love this energy.
No plans then from you to play this anytime soon.
No. I was just introducing Micah to the idea of Glup Shido.
Glup Shido?
Yeah, it's like a character in Star Wars, but people make fun of this character as being like, it's like the example of like, oh, it's Glup Shido. Like in other words, like these games are all just like self-referential and it's all full of in jokes and characters you recognize from some random novel and all of that. I just
I never heard this term. This is so funny.
Yeah, it's for people that don't know, it's GLUPSHITTO.
Glup Shido is such a good fake name, man.
Yeah, and
what's funny is Star Wars Outlaws.
Yeah, Glup Shido's in it. So I just don't. People get mad at me for making fun of Star Wars, and I understand. But when you write in and ask me to talk about it, I guess that's what that way it's going to have to be. It's not like I'm bringing it up,
right?
I do believe that the Star Wars Jedi Survivor game is good, and I liked Fallen Order. It's just that Fallen Order came out when I was still had some level of tolerance. I actually hadn't seen Episode 9 by the time because I didn't see it in the theater. I didn't see it until a couple of years after it came out. So I was like somewhere in like the realm of tolerance for this stuff still, but regardless of how good it is, and I know it did well, and they're going to make a third one and stuff like that. That's great, but it's just not for me. Also, it's funny, like 3D Metroidvania. Jaffe and I were just talking about this on Sacred Plus in a different context, where I'm like, I just reject that there even is such a thing as a 3D Metroidvania. You got to come up with a different. It's like when people, because we were talking about how people started talking about Darksiders. That was like when people were like, oh, it's like a 3D Metroidvania, and I'm like, no, there's no such thing as a 3D Metroidvania.
It's an adventure game.
Yeah.
Well, Metroidvania comes from Metroid, and there's 3D Metroid games.
Right.
What do you count those as?
Metroid Prime. So, third or first person shooters, really. I mean, like, I guess they're action oriented, puzzle oriented, some exploration. But I was saying that, like,
Metroid games,
3D Metroid games.
Game.
Yeah, right. But it's funny you're saying this, just because the argument, as I've said many times at IGN, was whether it was a first person shooter or an adventure game. But none of us were calling it Metroidvania at the time, because I think everyone kind of understood Metroidvanias could be in 2.5D, but 2D games with grid-like maps, or at least maps where you can put grids over them. And I was saying, I simply say this because I wish we had better ways to talk about games, because I know what you mean, but we have to have a better way of talking about it, like, than that, because it just doesn't make any sense to me from that perspective.
What about 3D Metroidvania? Does that?
Yeah, I mean that's fine, but just they're distinguishable by something, in my opinion. Sure. So no, I'm sure the game's good, but I just don't care. I just don't care about lightsabers, and I don't care about Millennium Falcon, and I don't care about the TIE fighters, and I don't care about any of this shit anymore. It's over. It's over.
It's Jover, man.
There's a spoilers for Star Wars Outlaws. No one's gonna give a shit about the spoiler.
Whoa! Hold on, let me write this down.
I guess this is not an interesting spoiler whatsoever. There's a Boba Fett cameo in Star Wars Outlaws.
Yeah, of course.
All you can do is just fucking roll your eyes. You know,
I remember that part.
You're going through the vent, and then you look out into the left, and you see, oh my god, Boba Fett is there. You're like, it's 2024. No one gives a shit about Boba Fett.
I guess he would be there. I guess
no one gives a shit about Boba Fett. His show fucking sucked. It's been 50 years of trying to make this character happen. He fucking sucks.
Well, they ruined a lot of the mystique when they made him a clone already. So
exactly, yeah.
I already had my moment with all that stuff in the early 90s or late 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah, the fact that he's just Jango Fett's clone kid or something like that. And it's like there's no mystique. There's nothing. Yeah. There's nothing mysterious about him. He's a complete jobber. But Star Wars Outlaw still thought it was going to be an interesting soy face moment for all of us when we see Boba Fett standing over a table, planning over things. God,
it's like Glub Shido. It's
Glub Shido. Yeah, it's Glub Fett. You know, that's what it is,
dude. Yeah. Here's the thing: just stop with it already. You know, and here's the other thing too, that people get mad at me, and then people make fun of the things I like. There's nothing you can make fun of that I like that is anywhere close to where Star Wars is right now. Nothing. Because Star Wars is in a bad place because it has been beaten so thoroughly into the ground.
What about the Jets?
I mean, they're just a football team.
You know? They've been beaten into the ground.
Yeah, they've been beaten into the ground. But
like you want to kill yourself every week.
But there's as much Jets football as there is every. In fact, because the Jets never make the playoffs, there's less Jets football than there is other teams. You know, they play fewer games. So, if anything, it's more rare to see the Jets play by virtue of that. But no, it's just enough. Dude, I can't. There's not enough in me to even be able to say how has anyone tuned into this anymore. Truly, I have no idea what's going on, man.
It's not special. I just pick things here and there that I enjoy. That's about it with Star Wars. I think Survivor is a great game, and I really liked it a lot, but the largest Star Wars thing I don't really care about. So it is what it is. But
yeah, I have Survivor, but I haven't played it because I have a complete lack of interest in Star Wars.
Yeah. I totally get that. If you don't give a shit about Star Wars, don't play it.
Like,
it makes total sense.
I actively avoid Star Wars now. Like, that's how I dislike Star Wars. I'm sorry that we all keep bringing this up. Colin and I have been talking about this ever since we started hanging out. So,
it is what it is. I didn't bring it up. So don't get mad.
We didn't bring this up. We don't fucking think about Star Wars. That's the issue, you know?
I got a lightsaber. Oh, it's another lightsaber, and he has a lightsaber. Oh,
it's the same thing with Dragon Age. Yeah, exactly.
Everyone's a Jedi, and everyone's
a wizard. Jedi.
7 bajillion places to go, but everyone's always together.
My emotions, though. My emotions are betraying me, you know?
Hey, guys, you can make fun of anything like that, right?
You know? There's Bib Fortuna. Oh, he's popping up.
Bib Fortuna. Oh, yeah.
He has a day off and he's at the Mos Eisley Cantina.
Hey, Mos Eisley's actually really sick in Outlaws. They actually did a really good job.
That actually is really cool in Outlaws. So
they actually did a really sick job with that.
That's what it is. It is a reference game too.
Yeah,
you know,
of course. When I found out when the game takes place, I was like, oh yeah, of course.
Fucking come on, man.
Oh, there's Bosk.
The Lizard Man.
Yeah, and Jabba the Hutt is a main character in Star Wars Outlaws, and so there's no tension because that's Jabba the Hutt. Like, what are you going to do with him? Nothing. What the fuck are you going to do?
He's just a gang lord. You grind rep for him. You can grind Jabba rep. All right, this is from Breaking Badgerman. Boys, can we all have a short little therapy sesh? On the last episode, Sacred Symbols, Colin voiced a thought that I've been having the past couple of years, especially since I turned 35. Is this it? What the fuck am I going to do for the next 40 to 50 years? Jesus. Brad and Gene, what are some of your tips for finding and maintaining happiness as we begin our journey through middle age? How do we manage the existential dread? Ignore it, accept it, focus on the day and day and be a little hedonistic about it. I'm sure a lot of us on the audience could use some advice. Well, now we're going to get real serious, boys. No more Star Wars talk. No more goofing about Bib Fortuna or whatever your glup shitto is. How do we deal with the dread of aging and death's embrace coming ever closer to us?
I don't fear death personally, but I think about it a lot, just in the sense of, and I'm sure Gene's gonna have some interesting answers for this too, considering what he's gone through. But I do think about things from the perspective of like, what am I gonna? I basically was joking, saying I'm 40 now, and so am I gonna live to be 80 or something? And then so like I'm halfway. Like, what am I gonna do? Like, how so much has happened, and you're gonna tell me all of this is gonna happen one more time, basically? That's just so much time, you know? And like, what could happen in there? It's exciting in some sense. It's horrifying in some sense. It's, you know, there's that famous Pink Floyd song "Time," where it's reflecting on how time moves faster and like how you didn't commit to things, basically, and then like you look back and you didn't do anything. Mm-hmm. And I don't feel quite like that, but I feel something like that, where I've wasted so much time. For all I feel like I've accomplished in my life, I feel like I could have done even more. But at the same time, I'm not one of these people that, you know, is like carpe diem, or seize the carpe diem, as some people say online now. And I'm not about like you squeezing the most out of every day. Sometimes I wake up at like 2 in the afternoon and I go to bed at like 2 in the morning, and I'm like, I've done nothing today. And the only reason I feel bad about that existence sometimes is because other people make me feel bad about it. But actually, I'm quite content living like that in some sense.
Yeah.
But I think that there are some people that look to extract more out of every day, and that's cool. And I look at the time left to me as being like, there are some things that I can still do. Like I have enough time, you know, to see through some things. But then I think I'm like, so 20 years from now, I'll be 60. 20 years ago, I was in college. It's crazy, you know? And then when you're 60, I imagine is when the existential shit really begins. I imagine the existential shit really begins at 50. And I remember that from like my friends' parents' birthday parties and like people talk about 50 and all that, and Dagan just turned 50. Yeah. But I kind of just, there is something interesting about the normal human being, not like the sick human being or the unwell human being, but where it's like death looms and we're closer to it every day, but you don't really think about it. You think about it in the moment, but it's like there is something in our minds where it's like you don't think about that. Like there's nothing to think about there. And then you can tell just by the way people have treated death throughout the time, and in prehistory, of course, it's like it was always something very mysterious and sad and deep, and like the unwillingness to let go from both sides. And I don't know, you know, but I was thinking about that. There's just so much time left, and I don't want to jinx myself. I think it was Ray Kurzweil that said, like, if you can live till 20, if you can live like 10 or 15 more years, you probably will live forever kind of shit. And so I was thinking about that a lot recently too, where it's like crazy time to die. Because think about all the people that have lived throughout time. And then you get to this baseline where it's like, oh, actually now you can like upload yourself in some way, or like you're permanent in some way. And you die like a month before that, after hundreds of thousands of years, you know?
Oh man, don't fucking.
It's like Black Mirror. You know?
Yeah.
And but some people wouldn't want to live like that either. Like, I'm fascinated by this idea of uploading yourself and just being able to be like, I had a bad day, go back to this morning. And like your brain has like a backup and you just go back as if that day never happened.
To reload your save.
Right. Like go back. Yeah. Like, and now the events in life happen, but maybe you just had a bad day because you woke up on the wrong side of the bed and no one's going to know any better. And you just never had that bad day, even though that calendar day existed, you know?
Okay, sure.
Yeah. There's like just, and again, it gets into weird Black Mirror shit for sure. But I just think about that, about perpetual life, about the other thing I'm fascinated about is checking in and out, being like, okay, I'm 100 and now I live in like a server somewhere. And I can have like a skin, like 3D printed Colin ready to go at any time. But wake me up in 20 years, you know, and we'll see where we're at. That kind of shit's interesting too.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to I don't want to experience any of this for a while, you know?
Yeah.
Tapping in and out.
Wake you up when a new Mega Man comes out or something.
What is consciousness? And again, there's that awesome Black Mirror episode I talk about sometimes where it's the one with Ham from Mad Men, where he is like torturing versions of people in these, basically the whole episode. It's the White Christmas, I think it's called. It's about the episode where they have like personal assistants in their lives, but the personal assistants are clones of them, like clones of their consciousness. But the clone doesn't know they're not the real version. And so they refuse to operate or work in certain ways. And so they're tortured with time by making it so that like, it's like, we're going to go away for the weekend. 10 years will pass for you. And when we're back, you'll be completely broken. You know, that kind of shit. And it's like, damn, dude, there's so
that's crazy
to think about, you know, and who knows if any of this stuff's, I think it is possible, but, and if you read about Neuralink, the things they're already doing at a very primitive level is crazy. So I don't know, man, but that's not really what you asked. I guess what I'm saying is that I hope we get to a point where time doesn't become currency anymore and you can just live, you know?
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
Gene, do you have any advice for Badgerman here?
Well, in terms of advice, I have to quote my friend Norm Macdonald, whose birthday was a couple days ago. But he said in his book, the only thing an old man can tell a young man is that it goes real, real fast. And if you're not careful, it's too late. Of course, the young man will never understand this truth.
Yep.
I think about that a lot because, boy, oh boy, did I feel invincible when I was in my 20s and 30s. It's why I did so much drugs. It's why I did so much alcohol. It's why I was drunk driving, for fuck's sake, you know? Because I thought nothing can harm me. Of course, that was very wrong. And of course, I've been very, very harmed in the past few years. So I have a very, very acute, keen sense of death. I've thought about it a lot. I will say, recently I looked up cryogenic freezing because I was always wondering, like, you know, you always hear about that in science fiction, and I was like, yeah, it's gotta, someone's got to be trying this though, right? And sure enough, people have tried it. So there are rich people who have bought paid companies to freeze them. And what happens is that maintaining these freezers is very, very expensive, and then the company goes out of business. And then what they do with the bodies is that they just dispose of them.
Ted Williams was one of them, right? Like early on, like when this first started, I thought, what I could be making that up, that like, because they used to there's a company that would like sever your head basically and freeze your head.
Yeah.
I mean,
and then there are other things like, you know, like cell regeneration.
Yeah, by the way, Ted Williams, the Red Sox player, is cryogenically frozen. So
boom, there you go. Yeah.
Frozen in 2 pieces.
Yeah, there's a company. I watched it might have been a Nova or something. I have no idea. Something on PBS probably, where it's a company where it's very expensive. I think it's like millions of dollars, but they'll freeze you like at the time you die. They'll be like ready to go, and if you want it cheaper, they'll cut your head off and freeze just your head. Because they think that might be all you really need. But it's unlikely that anything will come out of the. I think it's going to be. I think the salvation through this will come from the way we figure out how to synthesize with machines, and the idea that like if you get into a car accident, your body's gone, and you're just like, okay, when's the last time you like refreshed yourself? And it's like, I don't know, 4 days ago. And it's like, all right, well, we're going to upload you to a new body from that point on. Now the crash happened and time has gone on, but you can kind of come back. But we're not meant to live like that too. There's something very crazy about it. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Trust me, if I was a billionaire, if I was Elon Musk, I would probably be doing stuff like Neuralink. I would probably be doing more than that. I would probably be straight up Wayland Yutani in this bitch. You know, I would be let me find the alien body that I can transfer my soul into. If I had the power and the wealth, I would do unspeakable, horrible, inhumane things to attain immortality. I think it'd be worth it. Colin is afraid of having double the amount of time that he's already spent just now. For me, I'm like sick, totally. You know, I would love to live forever if I could. You know,
well, I guess I should be clear that there is something tantalizing about it, but it's horrifying about like what could happen in this time. You know, it's so much time. How pear-shaped can things go? You know, how
true.
You know, I don't know, man.
But I love to see it happen. I love to see all the shit happen. You know.
Yeah, I'm of the same mind. You and I have talked about this, Gene, where I'm like, you and I were like, if it was really going to be the end of the world, like the end of all things, I'd actually like to see it.
Yes,
you know?
yes. Like I would love to be there for it.
I don't want to be there for like a nuclear war where like 200 million people die and humanity struggles on and all that kind of stuff. But if you're telling me like this is over, you know, okay, that's fine. I'll see it.
Yeah. if this is the end of the story, how privileged are we? You were talking about, you know, how fucked it would be to die 1 month before the immortality chip is created, right? How fucked would it be how cool it is to be the humans that see the end of the human story? I think that'd be fucking sick, you know? Nobody would care, but I would.
Yeah, true.
And what I care about is all that matters. Again, which is why I would seek immortality. I would destroy 1 million lives just to save my own.
Some Dracula shit.
Totally. Yeah, I would absolutely be Dracula. You know, and then you know, there's all these stories, the cautionary tales and fables about how living long is a curse, and you know, like the short time we have is what makes life so precious. And you know, living long will be so horrible, like in Lost Odyssey or whatever. Oh my God, just think about all the pain and suffering you will go through as an immortal, right? My take is, let me just fucking find out for myself. Let me see. Let me experience that. You know.
Yeah.
And for me, I would rather experience all that than be dead and not have anything. You know. So. Yeah, I'm very scared of death. I don't know what to do. I think we do have to keep it out of our minds. Like Colin says, like we can't. If you live day to day thinking about it all the time, then you're just kind of frozen. It's very hard to live in a civilized society today, in a society that we built today, and function in it when you're obsessed with it. I try not to, which is why I'm always getting stoned all the time.
Well, I also think that there's something to that. I also think there's something to. We see it as a sickness when someone is obsessed with it, you know, because there is something biological about us where we're just like, no, you just don't. You literally, everyone thinks about it in a moment, but you just generally don't. You can't. Like if everyone was fixated on that, nothing would happen. That kind of comes with consciousness about even knowing that you're going to die. Like my dogs don't know they're going to die. They don't even think about it. So they have some sort of advantage of not even having to worry about that. There's no existential anything. So
yeah. Yeah, I've talked to my therapist. I pleaded with my therapist. I was like, how can I get to that level? How can I get my brain activity to that level where I'm not even thinking about this? You know, because it's fucked right now. I don't want to think about this all the time. You know, the drugs aren't working. You know, but I've been obsessed about this my entire life, ever since I was a child. I remember the day I found out that we died, and I cried. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, really? Like it's just over. And then there was this like Christian comic book that my grandma gave me, and it just depicted death as like complete blackness. And I was like, that's horrifying. I never want to do that. And then it's been 40 years and I'm still scared of it, you know?
Yeah.
Anyways.
Badgerman, so my advice would be, I guess, is it sounds like 35 to 40 years, like there's so much of your life you could still do things in. There's so many new experiences you could still have. There's always something to look forward to, in my opinion, if you want to. And I think you should find balance in your life, whatever that is for you. You should try to find a balance of things, and I think you'll be a lot happier. And make sure to live in the moment. Don't live in the past.
Yeah.
Don't live in the future. It's fine to reminisce or look forward, but live in the moment as well. Appreciate what you're doing right now. And just be okay with some days. It's fine, like Colin said, you know, to wake up at 2 p.m. or whatever. Like, whatever you got to do, but find a balance. And I think you'll be a lot more happier with everything you do.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone's their own person, so you just got to find out what works for you.
Yeah. What worked for me is, you know, I'm famous for having a lot of stories and having done a lot of crazy shit. And a large part of that is because it helps my life feel longer. It helps my life feel enriched. You know, it does feel like, wow, I really have lived several different lives. That's the cheat code. That's the only way you can go through life, at least for me, feeling like I've lived multiple lives, that I've lived not just one 40-year-old life, but I've lived several, you know? So that's why I've done things like, join the junior reserve officer training corps. You know, let me see what it's like to be in the military. You know, let me see what it's like to be a beauty pageant judge. Let me see what it's like to be a drug dealer. You know, like all this type of stuff, because it's fun. It makes life a lot more fun. And you know, even if I was to die 2 years ago of cancer, I made peace with myself that I said, you know what, I really did a lot. I lived a pretty fucking good life. I did. I had a pretty good run, you know. Yeah. And that's a shitty thing to make peace with yourself, but I sure had to, you know.
Yeah.
Right now I'm feeling kind of listless, you know, where I'm just like, wow, I survived that. All right, well, what the fuck do I do now? You know.
Well, you're just going through you'll find something else. You're just going through kind of a chilling phase right now, I guess.
Yeah. That's why when Colin said work for LSM, I was like, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah.
You know, awesome. It's a good way to spend my second life here in a video game podcast, you know?
Yeah. Also, you're never too old to start something. I'm not saying go try to do a 900 off a half pipe when you're 80 or whatever like that, but don't let the age thing kind of deter you from starting something new or learning something new. Like maybe you learn to play an instrument. You know, you're 60 years old. You can still do all that kind of stuff. So
moving somewhere and learning new stuff and meeting new people is the best way to make it feel like you're having a longer, enriched, and busy life. You know.
Yep. Yeah. All right. This next one is from Caleb Peacock. Hey boys, horror games being released during October makes a lot of sense. Do you think there's any moment in releasing or any money in releasing Christmas themed games during December? It could be overtly Christmas or more in the diehard sense. It sounds ridiculous, and I don't know what would sway me to play the game, but do you think even marginally that this could boost the sales of a game? To be clear, not talking shovelware schlop, but a AAA Christmas game, Lamau. Thanks.
I actually think there is something here. I mean, you would have to figure out a way to do it. What could it be? Christmas Fair is so fucking popular. Everyone loves Christmas, the fucking Hallmark movies, and obviously the classic films and the TV shows and the specials and the classics that are played and the music blankets everything. Why couldn't everyone decorates their houses? I mean, I live in the suburbs where it's like a fucking arms race out here, dude. You should see my neighborhood for Halloween. I'm like, what is going on around here? You know, that people are thousands of dollars. Some of these people are spending on this shit. No doubt. Huge skeletons and all this crazy shit. So why couldn't there be a game that takes advantage of Christmas? And what would it be? I don't know. Would it have to be AAA to reach the level you're saying of like saturation and relevance? It probably would have to be, and obviously your mind goes towards something a little more kiddie, like a 3D platformer or something. But it would be cool to have something that just took place. Like Die Hard's a great example of something that just took place, like he said, around Christmas and can kind of be themed around that. Not unlike The Division, though that game came out, in the spring, as I recall. So it didn't quite take advantage of that, but I could be wrong about the timing. I think that's right. So I do think that there is something there. I don't know what it would be, but why not? And I actually think it's somewhat ingenious to try to take advantage of that if you do it right. If it does come to be something that could be a cultural touchstone in games for a holiday that is world, even people that don't celebrate. When I grew up on Long Island, even a lot of the Jewish kids celebrated Christmas just because they got presents that day and you're part of the tradition and all the rest. So Christmas is more than just like a Christian holiday. It's a time of year and all the rest. And I think it has certain underlying themes, and as predictable as it would be, it's like, yeah, like some sort of walking simulator about togetherness or something. It's like, no, like it would be cool to have something clever that's gamey, that's like a video game, but makes perfect sense in December.
I got one right here for you, Colin.
Hit me with it.
Ebenezer in the Invisible World. It is a Metroidvania where you're Ebenezer Scrooge.
I never even heard of this.
Taking place during Christmas.
Ebenezer.
Here, I'll
send me a link here.
I played the demo of this like a year or two ago. Yeah, it's a Metroidvania where you're Ebenezer Scrooge.
It's pretty cool. Let me see. It looks good. It looks like a Metroidvania. I never heard of this in my life. Yeah, it's something like, obviously this isn't quite the AAA spectacle, but yeah, something that there's something here, My, if you look at old renditions of Santa too, like in the 19th century, he more looks like, in some drawings, like a wizard or like a mage of some sort with cloaks and all the rest. I actually have a really great illustration from that time period that my family displays sometimes. It looks like a role playing game almost, but it's like really beautiful, probably pre-war art or whatever. And so you could do something but I don't know. I'm not clever enough to figure out what that would be. But yeah, I think there's. Not only do I think that that's a cool idea or a possible idea, I think there's actually a lot of money to be made there and like cultural zeitgeist to capture. Think about Home Alone or Mariah Carey or some, whatever. Why couldn't games have something like that?
Yeah. We need a big Christmas game. Yeah, we need it. All right. Last question here is from Not Diddy or write in. Hey, GBC. Oh my. If you could wave a magic wand and give a dead or dying game series a do-over, which series would it be? I would personally hit the reset button on Darksiders. It would be 5 games, max. 4 of those games would be about different horsemen. The 5th game would be all about the horsemen coming together, Avengers style. Maybe this was the original plan, but it didn't work, hence the do-over. The story of the games aren't told in chronological order, and the overall story is a little confusing. I really wish that the series came together as something great. All right, get the reset button on something.
I don't know. Well, like, so where everything was different from the beginning?
Or you could just you can just redo it if you want.
I mean,
you could just be like, well, I'm going to redo this series.
It's funny, like the only, I think about Onimusha 3 just as being like, it would be cool to just have that game redone.
Yeah,
just to get rid of the licensing issues that are precluding them from re-releasing those games. But there are some series that I think go too far or that are mismanaged. I mean, what he's basically talking about here is rebooting something.
Yeah.
And to me, I think Resistance probably is the thing that comes to mind. But scrapping it indicates that there was something wrong with it to begin with, which there wasn't. So I don't know. That's probably the best answer I can come up with here.
Yeah. What about you, Gene? Do you have any ideas?
Yeah, this is a tough one. Rebooting is... Yeah, implying that something was more wrong with the original, or something that needs to be updated. And I don't know if I would. Yeah, I haven't really thought about it right now.
Hmm.
Prototype.
God God, what is everyone's fascination with that game?
Just to keep up with the meme, you know?
Yeah.
just to get the reaction out of Colin, you know? But yeah.
I just feel like there's so much like when Microsoft bought Activision, everyone's like, oh, I'm going to get Prototype back. It's like, Prototype?
Yeah, Prototype,
Come on, man.
Prototype. And then I also just mentioned this with PsyOps, the Mindgate conspiracy.
Oh, PsyOps, dude.
But that doesn't need a reboot. It just needs a new game, you know. Just make another PsyOps, the Mindgate conspiracy. Yeah. But yeah, Prototype too. Prototype was a very, very like offensively violent game. So maybe you can reboot it to make it just a little bit less offensive, or you can rewrite it so, you know, absorbing random strangers on the street and eating them isn't as violent. I don't know. You can just reimagine the whole world or something, you know.
Yeah.
If Prototype being the mass murderer monster was too much, you know.
Yeah, totally.
It was violent. Some of his violence even took me back, you know. So.
Yeah.
Advent Rising. That's another game I keep talking about. And Jaffe and Colin Jaffe just mentioned it on the Jaffe and Moriarty show. But that was directed by Donald Mustard, who directed Shadow Complex and Fortnite. So Advent Rising would be another one where I think that game doesn't age well. The controls are really, really bad. Graphics are terrible. The story is pretty cringe. But it had awesome music. It had really, really cool moves. And I think what you could do is you could probably just, you know, just make that a better action game, you know. No one gave a shit about Advent Rising. So
let me ask you this as an enjoyer of this game.
Advent Rising?
No. The different game. Starfield.
Oh.
Would you redo it and be like, no more generated worlds, procedurally generated worlds?
Totally. Oh, dude. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Starfield was great. Starfield, I would redo that and be like, no, 100 planets, bro. Like 1,000 planets? Are you fucking kidding me? 100 planets is already crazy, you know?
Yeah. How about
maybe
3?
it should have been a solar system, you know? Or at least 2 solar system. Make it 16 planets, you know?
Sure. Yeah.
But that'd be fucking dope. But yeah, 16 different maps or anything like that. Oh my God. Yeah, please. Part of why I like Starfield was because the audaciousness of that scale.
Right.
But I can't help but agree that if Starfield was just had a much smaller focus, then a lot more people would like it, including myself. So.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
But I would. No, that's fine. You had to go help the doggies.
Yeah, there's
what I would do is I would redo Overwatch, all of it, and I would have the multiplayer that they had in the first game, but I'd also have plenty of PvE content ready for it as well, and I would have media stuff for it as well, like a TV show, like a Netflix show, so they could have all that stuff laid out right before them. And so we wouldn't have an Overwatch
before Concord. Even started,
Concord, right? Dude, yeah. Well, they already self-deleted that, or gonna try to redo it probably.
Yeah.
But Overwatch is just like a game that has so much, or had so much potential, and it was on top of the world, and they kind of fumbled it in a lot of ways. It's still very popular, don't get me wrong, but nowhere near as popular as it used to be amongst even the casual gamers. Like, people were playing that game, they didn't even like hero shooters, they just liked the characters.
Yeah.
So they certainly had something. All right, boys, that's it. Another episode done. Colin, Gene, thank you guys for joining me. I appreciate it. Thanks for taking time out of your day, chat video games with me. Good stuff. Before we go, anything you guys want to say, or should we just get out of here?
No, I'm appreciate you having me. Thank you. It's good to see you guys.
Yeah.
Hope you have a good week.
Yeah, thank you. Gene, thank you for being here as well again. Always fun chatting with you.
I was looking forward to this. We talked about some good games and had some good conversation. I was actually looking forward to this episode.
Cool. Hell yeah. That's what I like to hear. Cool. Next week, everybody, Halloween episode. Get excited. I'm excited for it. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching or listening. We appreciate it. You'll have a good one. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
Summon Sign is a product of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is written and hosted by me, Brad Ellis. The show is produced by Dustin Furman. All of Last Stand's theme music is by Ramon Narvaez. Summon Sign, along with the rest of Last Stand's media shows, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we are grateful for your kind contribution and generosity to our independent endeavor. Thank you.